Ricky Henderson forcing Nelson Liriano's wild throw. 2 runs score. A's win eventually 7-3, placing the pressure squarely on the shoulders of 24-year-old Todd Stottlemyer, who starts today for Toronto. If he can only do as well as his dad a quarter-century ago, a 22-year-old rookie, Stottlemyer went 9-3 for the Yanks and even beat Bob Gibson, the Cardinal ace, in Game 2 of the World Series. It's Todd Stottlemyer today. Mel's son just 7-7 against 19-game Oakland winner Mike Moore in Game 2. And NBC Sports welcomes you once again to the Oakland Coliseum for Game 2 of the American League playoffs. As you know, the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Oakland A's. And it's a perfect baseball afternoon. 66 degrees, sunny skies, only a light breeze. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas, along with Tony Kubek, and this is the kind of October baseball afternoon we remember as kids. A midweek game, a chance for those of you in the office to maybe sneak away for a few innings, forget your duties for a while, catch a glimpse of the game, or kids in school sneaking off, asking for a pass to go somewhere and actually pull the transistor radio out of their pockets, rush home to catch the last few innings, racing from that school bus. That's what I was doing 25 years ago as a 12-year-old to watch Mel Stottlemyer pitch Game 2 in St. Louis in the World Series for your Yankees against Bob Gibson. So the question, Tony, is Todd Stottlemyer a cool customer like his dad?
Very different. When Mel was called up, he was a polished pitcher, good sinker ball, excellent command of his change, terrific composure. Todd, a power pitcher, 90 miles an hour, still trying to refine his breaking stuff and off-speed stuff. He can get in trouble early, get too deep in the count. But sometimes his emotions get away from him, and that's what Al Widmeyer will try and contain. So basically what Al Widmeyer, the PhD of pitching, is going to tell Todd, stay within yourself, and let's listen more to Al Widmeyer, the pitching coach, about Todd.
Well, Todd's had a lot of pressure on him, mainly starting with his dad, trying to emulate maybe his performances. The other night in Toronto, he pitched against Baltimore, which was a very big ball game for us, and he handled himself well. So I'm looking for Todd to pitch well, as he has done in the past 10 starts, and he's come a long way since joining the Blue Jays, and he's been a big acquisition for us, and I think Todd's going to be one of the real fine pitchers.
Maybe so, but in this, just his second big league year, actually spent part of it in the minor leagues, a 500 pitcher with an ERA of 3.88. His opponent today, Mike Moore, 19-11.
Nasty.
Very nasty, wicked stuff, ERA 2.61, and he threw 3 shutouts. We'll check the lineups when we come back.
Game 2 of the American League Championship Series is brought to you by Coors. Brewery Fresh, pure and natural. It's a true American original. By Delta Airlines, we love to fly, and it shows. By Wendy's old-fashioned hamburgers, the best hamburger in the business. And by Lennox Heating and Air Conditioning, quality proven over time. Since 1895, must be a Lennox.
You're looking at the pregame story, and a last-minute story at that. In right field, Stan Javier. Jose Canseco came to the park with a migraine headache. He had been hopeful of playing. They had him penciled in until they took the field moments ago, and Tony La Russa gives him the day off. So Javier will be in right field, and that changes the entire lineup around, and we'll give you that when the A's come to bat in the bottom half of the first. Right now, as Mike Moore loosens up, here's Cito Gaston's lineup, and it's identical to last night. Mosby, Wilson, McGriff, Bell in the cleanup spot in left, Fernandez at short, not your typical number 5 hitter. Witt will catch, Gruber at third, Mazzilli to DH again, and Liriano at second base. Mike Moore went 19-11 this year. He threw the only 3 complete game shutouts on the staff, but they rely so heavily on their bullpen, they had 17 other combined shutouts where the bullpen finished up. He has, as Tony said, wicked stuff. Used to be just fastball slider at Seattle and too much in the middle of the plate. But he's developed a hard forkball. He'll cut the fastball more now, and he's on the corners more. Plus, he's come to a better team with good defense. You add it up, he goes 19-11.
Well, just getting half your starts in the Oakland Coliseum and not half your starts in the Seattle Kingdom with the artificial surface and those short dimensions makes a big difference. But Dave Duncan has refined his stuff. He's more of a pitcher than a thrower now.
A ball and a strike to Mosby. What are the Blue Jays up against here? In addition to the seeming mismatch with the starting pitchers, the A's are 54-27 at home, and they have the best day baseball record in the major leagues. They're 48-18 in sunshine. 1-2.
There's the forkball, and again, like Dave Stewart, he can adjust the width of the spread of the fingers to make it do different things. Widen the fingers, take a little more speed off. Mosby had a couple balls on the nose yesterday. Some would tend to say he's hitting in bad luck. But the way this Oakland computerizes their pitching and their defense, they'll pitch them away and play them that way, and the hard hit balls go at people at times.
Mosby went 0 for 4 last night. 2-2 the count. The plate ump is Dan Morrison, working his first ever playoff series. Dale Ford at first, Darrell Cousins at second, Rick Reed at third, right field line Dave Phillips, left field line Steve Palermo. Hasse with the sign, Moore with the pitch. Wrapped down to first. McGuire will do it himself.
We talked about the lineup and the offensive changes, and of course you don't get that quick home run from Canseco, so you get a little more of a speed game defensively and offensively with Ricky, Dave Henderson, and Stan Javier in right. Weiss playing short today. Gallego played yesterday. Hasse, a fastball hitter with a fastball pitcher in Stottlemyer. He's behind the plate catching more.
Mookie 1 for 3 with a walk last night. Those numbers are Toronto only in the season's last 2 months after the deal that brought him over from the Mets. Squibber right at Lansford, who was in close. Lansford led American League third baseman in fielding percentage in both 87 and 88, but his error total went up a bit this year.
It is fun to watch him and how he has improved defensively. We mentioned it last night, but when you look at his get-ready stance and the way he plays, the style is Clete Boyer all over again. He's down low. He plays a shallow third base more often than not, unlike Brooks Robinson or Craig Nettles. He dares you to hit the ball by him on many occasions. This man's slump continues. That's Boyer.
Down low to McGriff, whose season opened with a bang and closed with a whimper. He was the American League Player of the Month for April, hitting .315 with 7 home runs. That sent him on his way to the home run title. But in September, he hit around 150 for the month, and he hasn't hit a home run now in exactly a month. His last one came on September the 4th. Moore works 1-0.
Mike Moore's numbers trailed off after July. He was all but awesome, and then after July, Bob, I think he went something like 5 and 6. Control can be a problem, but the Blue Jays, aside from Freddie McGriff, Witt on occasion, Lloyd Mosby sometimes, Fred McGriff's the guy that really goes up there and takes walks for him more than anybody else. A team like Boston might give Mike Moore trouble. A lot of people who work the count.
Nobody on, 2 out. The 2-1 pitch is in there. Control, as Tony said, is a key. In Moore's 19 wins, his ERA is 0.76, and he averaged less than 2 walks per 9 innings. But in his 16 other starts, he averaged 5 walks for 9 innings. There's the forkball. The bottom just drops out. He gets the strikeout and sets the Jays down 1-2-3 in the first. Not a very nice 45th birthday present for Tony La Russa when his big gun can't go. So with Canseco on the bench, it's Henderson and Lansford, same 2 at the top, but Parker moves to 3rd. McGuire up from 6th to clean up. Henderson stays 5th. Hasse catches. Steinbach went 1 for 4, but with 3 strikeouts last night. Phillips at 2nd. Javier, the new right fielder, bats 8th, and Walt Weiss, the switch hitting shortstop, instead of Gallego, in the 9th slot.
Sometimes Todd Stottlemyer has a problem when he's throwing in the low 90s, wanting to throw 3 or 4 miles an hour faster. Al Whitmire's worked with the sinker ball, changed his grip, and sometimes that can be very effective for him. He'll go slider and curveball, more curveball now, and sometimes the change. Perhaps his control a key, maybe more so his off-speed stuff.
Neither leadoff man had a hit last night. But what a difference Henderson made. Stottlemyer works to him. And there's a strike. Mosby was 0 for 4. Henderson was 0 for 2. But with a pair of walks, hit by a pitch once, 2 stolen bases, and the crucial takeout slide on Liriano as the game turned in the 6th. Toward the hole, here's Fernandez. He plants and throws. Safe.
Wow, did Freddie McGriff pull his foot off the bag? Freddie didn't look like he really stretched out. Tony's foot gave way, Tony Fernandez, when he tried to plant and throw. You might see a slight delay with Ricky Henderson's brilliant speed. The right foot. He'll plant, it gives. That gives Henderson a half a step. Freddie McGriff does not stretch out full length. Had he stretched out, they've got Ricky Henderson by at least a half a stride.
Plus, there's a slight hesitation here, Tony, while he gets it out of the glove. Very slight.
It's bang, bang. Was the ball in the glove or not? That may not have been definitive. But had Fred McGriff got it on without the hop, he's got him. They pitch out. Fred McGriff had a rough year this year fielding. Last year he led American League first baseman in fielding percentage. This year he struggled the first half, making a lot of errors, and for some reason he's backed off a little bit and may have on that stretch.
The A's stole 4 last night. Jays had 3 swipes.
It's something Todd Stottlemyer did in the offseason. Back and forth between Syracuse and the Toronto Blue Jays. They sent him to Venezuela to work on his off-speed stuff and holding runners on. So he's quickened his move to first and tried to quicken it to home.
Not going, and Lansford takes inside. Todd Stottlemyer was born May 20th, 1965, while his dad was in the midst of his first 20-victory season for the Yankees. Mel would win 23 times. And remember, the Yankees won the pennant only in Mel Stottlemyer's rookie year. After that, the dynasty crumbled. And Mel Stottlemyer put up great numbers with some weak teams. Fouled off.
What an outstanding number 2 hitter. You start thinking of Lou Brox and Ted Sizemore and Maury Wills with Junior Gilliam, and every time there's an outstanding base stealer, you've got to have a guy with good bat control who will take pitches, give you time to run, and Lansford can do that.
Here's a guy who not only does that, but almost wins the batting title. Lost by 3 points to Kirby Puckett, who became the first right-handed hitter to win it in the American League since Lansford did it in '81 in the strike season for the Red Sox. 2-1 pitch, the runner going, line drive, Fernandez has it, and hello Ricky, double play.
And Tony wisely doesn't waste a throw. He just tags him instead of throwing it across the diamond.
In that case, it kind of fell into his lap, didn't it?
Going to cover. If there's a better pair of hands, I guess you'd have to talk Ozzie Smith. A slider in a very, very good spot, and that'll show you what kind of hitter Lansford is. I mean, it's a perfect pitch, but he stayed with it. And Tony going over to cover, so the Blue Jays get a break. Shift is on again, as it was last night for Dave Parker.
Fernandez about a half step on the right field side of second base from his shortstop spot. Liriano back on the outfield grass in right. McGriff on the edge of the grass, way behind first, but the outfield plays him straight away. He muscled a pitch to the opposite field for a soft RBI single to left in the 5th last night. That cut their deficit to 3-2. McGuire tied it in the next inning with a leadoff homer. And then all heck broke loose. Slices this one foul. Parker's gaudy portfolio includes an MVP award with the Pirates, 2 National League batting championships, a pair of very productive years for Cincinnati before he came over from the National League last year in the deal that sent Tim Burtsis and Jose Rio to the Reds. 0-1 pitch. He does pop it left field. Gruber goes back and makes the catch. It appeared that he was consciously trying to go the other way.
When Todd Stottlemyer came off the mound after that half inning, Al Woodmar, Ernie Witt, the catcher, Perhaps to talk about the pitch selection, or when they do change signs with a man on second base. And Carney Lansford hit a bullet, and he had a pretty good pitch. Don't know what that means, but maybe to suspect something. Hit a slider that hard up the middle.
1-0 to Bell, who was 1 for 4 last night. Foul back. He also contributed defensively with a hustling play in center on a Mike Gallego bloop. He threw Phillips out trying to score from first when he backed up Mosby, who had slipped and gunned the throw home to Ernie Witt. These scouting reports are compiled by Steve Horn of our staff, and they're a consensus of his discussions with several big league scouts from around the American League.
Last night they did try and keep the ball inside on George Bell. This time they go away, and many times the catcher, Hasse in this case, will look at the positioning of George Bell in the batter's box. Early in his career, George Bell was a good off-speed breaking ball hitter when he went more to right center field. George Bell, when they started busting him with fastballs, started pulling the ball more, hit his MVP year. And so he is adjusted from year to year, sometimes from week to week. Hasse will watch the way he moves in the batter's box.
Count holds at 1-2 to him. He'll be followed by Fernandez and Witt here in the second. No score.
And Bob, if you're going to bust George Bell inside, you've got to have the kind of fastball to do it. And Stewart did last night. Obviously, Mike Moore does. Storm Davis is a good fastball, and Bob Welch also. So they've got the kind of staff they can do different things with to each hitter.
Down and in, and he golfs it foul. Prior to this year, Mike Moore's only winning season was 1985, when he went 17-10. In fact, in the last 2 years, he was 9-19 in '87. Then 9-15 in '88. There you see what he did in 7 full seasons in Seattle. And the switch here to Oakland, he goes 19-11. 2-2. I don't know if our microphones can pick up Tarzan just beneath us.
Or above us.
Wasn't Jack London from the Bay Area? We're hearing the call of the wild throughout the ballpark. If he came here with a girl named Jane and a monkey, I want an investigation. Still 2-2.
Dave Duncan likes to publicize the fact that all 4 of his starters throw forkballs. He's very open about it. And they all do. I think Stewart and Moore have the 2 best ones, but he likes to talk about Welch's and Storm Davis's also.
Liner to left, and it's going to drop in front of Ricky Henderson for Bell's second hit of the series.
I think a forkball that was a little bit up, still way ahead of it on the end of the bat. I mentioned about Duncan seemingly liking to publicize it. Oakland Alameda Coliseum. Will they get the Raiders back in this area? It's been talked about with their new coach. But Duncan likes to throw the thought of the opposition, in the opposition hitter's mind, that his people throw the forkball, which makes their fastball so much better. The forkball is a pitch that can embarrass you, like a great curveball and a knuckleball. And as long as the hitter keeps thinking, I've got to make him bring it up, I know it's a pitch I can look bad on. The fastball looks that much quicker.
A ball to Fernandez. The downside is it's sometimes difficult to control. And let me repeat what I said right at the end of the top of the first. In his 16 non-winning starts, he averaged 5 walks per 9 innings, and his ERA was over 5. In his 19 wins, he had pinpoint control, scarcely walked anybody, and his ERA was a phenomenal 0.76.
Bob, I thought after Ernie Witt's home run last night that perhaps Ernie Witt would go back into the 5th slot behind George Bell, put a little more power there. But for consistency over the last 3 to 4 weeks, Fernandez has hit for an average. Ernie Witt is still trying to struggle out of a slump. And you'd like a pull hitter in this situation. If Bell gets on, pull hitter to get the ball through the right side.
It's down low, 3-0. Something else to keep in mind with a runner on base, particularly if somebody gets as far as 3rd against Moore. Only Nolan Ryan threw more wild pitches in the American League this year. Noli uncorked 19. 17 got away from more. Ken Howell, the former Dodger, now with the Phillies, led the majors with 21. He walks him on 4 pitches. Now as Ernie Witt walks to the plate, let's flash back to the top of the 4th last night. He connected for a long homer to right off Dave Stewart, and as it turned out, that would be Toronto's last hit of the night. Since he was leading off the inning, in effect, they were no hit for the next 6 innings of the game. And a 3-1 lead evaporated, and they lost 7-3. Here it is, Tony.
Fastball, and that's what he is. Good fastball hitter, you might guess. You know, this offense for the Blue Jays, and yesterday Stewart looked like there might be a relatively big inning. Send 7 to the plate. They got just 2 runs, stranded a couple, but their offense remains stagnant over a long period of time now, even against a team that didn't have good pitching in September.
The homer by Witt last night was just the 4th for Toronto in their last 14 games.
You wonder if some of the offensive problems are because the more pressure of the pennant race, the more time Cito had to spend with the media and could not spend with his hitters. I mean, Cito Gaston is part-time hitting instructor and full-time manager, and he spends very little time looking at the mechanical deficiencies or the psychology of hitting with his people, pumping them up, because he's got the whole ball of wax now to contend with. The pitching, the defense, and all else.
2 on, nobody out, top half of the 2nd. So far, no score, and a 1-1 pitch coming from Mike Moore to Ernie Witt. Bouncing ball slowly and foul. Cito well protected, flanked by his own Lee Mazzilli and one of Oakland's finest on the other side. Witt at 37, catching a day game after a night game. Over in the booth to our right, Johnny Bench, working for CBS Radio, once put it very well. He said a catcher and his body are like an outlaw and his horse. Got to ride that nag till it drops. That one drops outside. There's JB into the Hall of Fame this year.
His knees finally gave in. Tried to put him at 3rd base. At a very young age when you look at what some of the other catchers are doing these days.
2-2 pitch.
That Bench goes to the to old timers games sometimes, and the catchers catching that day are older than he. That forkball for Moore, when he throws it hard, and he's not a sinker ball pitcher, the fastball pretty much runs or sails, as you said earlier, but when he throws the hard split finger, it's almost like having the good sinker ball, the natural rotation, and that can be his double play pitch.
Bell a modest lead at 2nd. Fernandez, pretty good lead at 1st. McGuire behind him, of course, on the pitch. Foul back toward us.
And it was interesting, Bob, right there before that pitch, Mark McGuire kept decoying Tony Fernandez, decoying him to keep him close to the bag so he wouldn't get a good shot at the pivot man at 2nd base. Unlike the Blue Jays yesterday, when Ricky had a big lead off 1st base with Acker pitching from the stretch, nobody decoying, and it was a watch McGuire. He's going to keep Tony Fernandez just that 1 stride closer. The ball fouled off. That was a play that probably should have been made by the Blue Jays middle infield, and it helped some runs. Some runs come to the Oakland Athletics. But that's been typical of Blue Jays teams.
Struck him out. Tony, sometimes in the last 3-4 years around baseball, we hear the terms split finger and forkball used interchangeably. Are they pretty much synonymous now?
Well, it depends. Tom Hankey will throw a true forkball. When he throws his first pitch, he might go a little bit closer with the fingers. It's harder. And I talked to Dave Duncan about it during the off day and have in the past. And I said, are they all the same? He said, every guy on our staff throws it differently. He said, they've all got different size hands. They all have, some have more flexibility to spread the fingers. But Duncan talks about the importance of the thumb. Some like the thumb directly beneath the ball. Some like it on the side. He said every pitcher's got to maneuver it, his fingers and the thumb, the way he wants to, because every release point's different.
The major's hardest split finger is probably thrown by Mike Scott of the Astros. That just explodes when it reaches the plate.
And that's why he gets accused of doctoring of baseball.
You could see on the last swing by Witt, as he became Moore's second strikeout victim, A, why the pitch properly thrown is so devastating, and B, why it can be dangerous, as Hasse had to dig it out of the dirt. That's why he's got the 17 wild pitches.
And the jury's out on it. You know, whether or not it does in fact hurt arms. I guess it depends upon the delivery and the release point, as pitching coaches and pitchers will tell you. It might hurt some arms. Many younger pitchers, they advise to stay away from it.
0-1 to Gruber. And he skies one to left center. Dave Henderson has room. Bell retreats to second, looking to tag. He's going to move up to third. The throw properly comes to second to keep the force play in order and keep Fernandez out of scoring position. And now there are runners at the corners with 2 out.
We talked a little last night that the ball does carry so much better in this warmer air in the daytime.
Number 13, Lee Mazzilli, designated hitter.
Here's Lee Mazzilli, who was hoping as hard as anyone for a return to health by George Bell. While Bell nursed the tender elbow, he had to DH. Maz knew in the season's final few days that if the Jays made the playoffs and if Bell could play left field, that he'd have the chance to DH.
Well, they have the young kid, around 21 years old, the switch hitter Junior Felix. When he came up, he gave the team a tremendous boost. He went about 6 weeks and he was just awesome, hitting home runs, driving in runs with tremendous speed. But he then went about 2 months without hitting at all, starting to make some mistakes and pout a little bit.
More from the stretch, and a called strike. When the Mets reluctantly let Mazzilli go, it appeared as if his career would end right there, that he'd retire and then pursue coaching or maybe somewhere down the road managerial possibilities. But at least for a while, his playing career has been renewed and in a pennant race for the Blue Jays. Bluff throw to third, look back to first.
It's a play that worked years ago, still works on occasion. Like Bird and Steve Busby of the Kansas City Royals used to pull that. First time they did it, first few times, it surprised a lot of base runners, first and third.
There were so many stories in the aftermath of the 1986 World Series, one of the most dramatic and bizarre in the game's history, that what Mazzilli did could easily be overlooked. But he had some key at-bats as a pinch hitter, especially in games 6 and 7, as the Mets came from behind each time to break the Red Sox hearts. In there, 1-2.
Mazzilli did not appear to like Dan Morrison's call. These are tough at bats for a veteran like Mazzilli. He likes to see a pitcher a lot. You can tell him from the bench. What does he throw? Throws hard, got the fork ball, but how much does the fork ball tumble? How hard is the fastball? What's the movement on it? What does the slider do? How much does it bite?
They try it again, and here's the throw, and they got him.
Oh,
it
no.
worked, but they got to watch the play at the plate now. Throw to third, back safely, and it backfires on the Oakland A's. They wind up giving up a base to Fernandez. Had McGuire chased him, he was afraid Bell was going to score, but he made his move toward third too quickly before George had come far enough down the line between third and home, and Bell was able to dart back while Fernandez took second.
Well, these are the things you see so often with the Blue Jays, and one of the reasons why for the last 5 years or so you say that great talent, why don't they win? They do make mistakes on the bases. Lansford thinks that he tagged Bell on the backside before he hit the bag. Rick Reed said he was in. The Blue Jays somehow got out of that. McGuire held the ball a little bit too long, perhaps.
Officially, that scored a stolen base. Now the 1-2. Mazzilli drives one to right, but Javier, almost in his tracks, ends the inning. And Moore tiptoes through a minefield unscathed. Mike Moore's best break in that last half inning came when Kelly Gruber missed, really, an 0-1 fastball. He had a pitch he could handle. Sent a fly ball to Henderson in center. Bell tagged and advanced to third, but it might have been a pitch that could have been costly for Mike Moore.
And you wonder if that play they tried twice where they finally got Fernandez picked off and he got to second base wasn't because of an old Jimmy Williams play lying around. The Blue Jays have tried an occasion where the runner off first base stumbles. The pitcher steps off if he does, and he throws over, and as soon as he makes his first move, the runner breaks off third and has a chance to score. And maybe that was in the scouting report, to beware of this play.
0-1 pitch to Mark. He rifles one to left for a leadoff hit.
So the Blue Jays, as last night in the second inning where they looked like they had a big inning, came up with two. First and second, nobody out, couldn't advance them except for the sac fly and then the botched play a little bit by McGuire. So they just keep letting the opposition off the hook. First two games thus far. Can't do that to good teams especially. You can come back on teams that have poor pitching staffs. But boy, this staff is so deep, 1 through 10.
Here's the man making a bid to be a lowercase Mr. October. He's got to go a ways to catch Reggie. And probably the greatest playoff performer of the 80s was George Brett of Kansas City. But Dave Henderson has 5 postseason homers and an LCS and World Series batting average combined, as you see, of .338 in contrast to his regular season mark of .262. .1-0 pitch from Stottlemyer is cut on and missed.
Dave Henderson, obviously a guy that gets inspired by the pressure as opposed to some who crumble under it.
And Tarzan awakes yet again. Fouled off 1 and 2. Todd Stottlemyer was sent back to the minors, their AAA affiliate at Syracuse, after going 0-3. Sent down on May 15th, recalled on June 30th, lost his next start to go 0-4, and since then he's won 7 of 10. He has never pitched a complete game in 34 big league starts. Got under it, skies it to left center. Mosby and Bell each wants it, and the center fielder properly takes it.
Because that area is the sun field and might get a little bit worse in an inning or two. The outfielders out in that area are going to help each other out. You know, this spring, Todd Stottlemyer was being groomed as the closer, the stopper, the ender. See it again with Mosby going over to help Bell off. The center fielder controls. He hollers him off. But they were talking about trading Tom Hankey, coming off and off here. Montreal, maybe Atlanta. He didn't throw the ball well in spring training. So they were grooming Todd Stottlemyer. So he didn't have a lot of innings pitched, although he did have winter ball in Venezuela.
Here's Ron Hasse. Double play ball to second. Liriano to Fernandez. They turn it. Leadoff single by McGuire. He's erased on the double play. No score after 2. Back after this from your local station.
Game 2 of the American League Championship Series is brought to you by your Toyota dealer. Whatever car or truck you choose, you'll love the quality. Who could ask for anything more? And by new Keystone and Keystone Light. Bottled beer taste in a can. Wouldn't that be great?
Watch Liriano's throw. 2 very slow runners, McGuire and Hasse, and it all but handcuffs Tony Fernandez. So even on what looked like a routine double play, the Blue Jays had a little glitch in it.
Liriano is the leadoff man, taking ball 1 from Moore. Oakland made 129 errors this year. Toronto 127. Baltimore led the majors with the fewest errors. The Orioles kicked only 87. So you can place those stats in some kind of perspective. But error totals alone seldom tell the story of team defense. Here's the 1-0 pitch. Down low. What you have to consider is all the cutoff men missed. The double play no longer in order. The extra base given up needlessly. The balls that fall in the gaps for hits and aren't charged as errors. And the double plays not turned. Those are all factors when you talk about Toronto and how the defense sometimes puts an unnecessary burden on the pitching staff.
It's interesting, too, that Cito now has insisted upon better defensive alignment because of the spacious sky dome you'll see a couple days from now.
Moore has it, and on the comebacker, Liriano is retired.
You know, there were times where some of the Blue Jays players defensively were so stubborn that they wouldn't move even when told to. And Cena said, when my guy, John McLaren, tells you to move, you move.
Here's Mosby, who grounded to third to open the game. Only 2 years ago, the man they call Shaker had 26 homers and 96 RBIs, and he won't be 30 until later this month. So he might have productive years left in him, but he was a disappointment in '89.
We're talking about '87. Everybody hit home runs.
True.
He wasn't the only one that took a tumble.
Dawson had 49 to lead the National League. McGuire had 49 as a rookie here for Oakland. Bell hit 47, winning the MVP. 1-1.
The Shaker, he got that nickname playing basketball in this area, and I guess he was a great college prospect. Very tenacious defensive player and a good jumper. I guess you couldn't shake him. He was guarding you.
Hitless in 5 trips in the series. No score, top of the third, and if you're just joining us, Canseco a late scratch with a migraine headache. Stan Javier in right field.
Canseco eligible to pinch hit, we understand, if needed. It was not in the official lineup card handed to the umpires, but it was a late scratch.
Toronto's staff gave him a headache last night. He was hitless with 3 Ks. They won without him 7-3. 2-2 pitch. Line to center. It's in there for a hit. Cut off by Dave Henderson. Mosby's aboard with 1 out here in the third.
So the Blue Jays have the speed on in Mosby, and they have a good fastball hitter in Mookie Wilson up. They don't like to throw him first pitch fastballs too often. So if they feel they want to throw Mookie an off-speed pitch because he likes to jump on the first one, a fork ball. Lloyd might be going early in the count, Lloyd Mosby. They may throw the hard slider in the fist, which would give Hasse a chance.
Lansford inching in close at third. McGuire holding Mosby. And Wilson taking a ball. Here's the scouting report on the Mookster.
The thing about that first ball fastball, it's common. You think of Paul Mount or a lot of others. So what do? You start the guy with the breaking ball, which is harder to control, and you go behind in the count 1-0. Then he becomes a better second ball fastball hitter. So it's easy to say first ball fastball, throw him a breaking ball, but for most pitchers that's a harder pitch to control, and you end up pitching in behind in the count, which would make it a better running count for Mosby.
I just recalled that in the last couple of years with the Mets, Wilson, usually playing center field, had an uncommon amount of trouble in day games. In fact, he was sporting a Stevie Wonder look, wearing sunglasses at all times, at the plate, in the field, down at all times, not just flipping them as a ball approached him.
Do you remember how that started, though? Or they think it started when he was hit in the head in a rundown, and they thought it did something to his equilibrium. And when he looked up in the bright sun or bright sky, that may have caused him problems.
High chopper. McGuire charging, tough play, and he boots the ball as Wilson goes by. Meanwhile, Mosby sprints to third.
Very alert base running by Mosby. He saw the ball all the way, did not need any help from his third base coach. You just saw what Mookie Wilson does for this team with his speed. It's chopped off home plate, or maybe the hard pan in front of it. It gets a little harder in day baseball when it dries off here and makes it a little faster infield. Lloyd's following the ball all the way. McGuire, knowing that Mookie Wilson might beat Moore to the first base bag, tried to smother it and tag him. Felt it was his only play, and Mosby, with excellent perception, beats.
He's trying that one motion move, scoop it and swing it over for the tag, and the ball pops free. Now here's McGriff. 0 for 5 in the series with 2 strikeouts and in an RBI spot. First and third, 1 out, no score. And a strike call. Rule that last play a hit for Wilson and an error for McGuire to allow Mosby to go from second to third.
Off the plate, he tries to smother it. Mike Moore, it would have been close. McGuire's judgment was he couldn't turn and throw over Mookie's head and get him. It got him in trouble again.
The Blue Jays left 2 in the second. Two on with 1 out here in the third. Tomorrow's an off day. Game 3, Friday night at the Sky Dome in Toronto. Jimmy Key against Storm Davis. Then Game 4, Saturday afternoon. Bob Welch, with plenty of postseason experience between the Dodgers and the A's, goes against Mike Flanagan, who's also pitched under pressure for many years with the Baltimore Orioles, former Cy Young Award winner. The 1-1 pitch. Mookie goes. Bouncing ball. It's going to get a run home. They stay out of the double play because the runner was going. And Mosby crosses with the game's first run. We talked about that last night. Cito Gaston has figured this out with Freddie McGriff slumping, taking a lot of base on balls. An important game over the weekend against Baltimore. He started Mookie with McGriff up. A power hitter, a slugger who strikes out a lot and takes a lot of pitches. So Cito Gaston forcing McGriff to swing the bat. And McGriff cut his swing down and put it in play. It is unusual, La Russa is saying, but that was in the scouting report, and it's because of McGriff's slump. Give the RBI to Freddie. Bell lined a single to left his only time up.
More often than not, even when men in scoring position, as there is now for the Blue Jays, George Bell will look at a pitch. Yogi Berra used to do that, and then on occasion, as Bell just did, he thought, well, I'll maybe jump on a fastball, and he threw him a slider.
Outside and low. George Bell, one of 5 Dominicans on the present roster, plus their farm system, is dotted with players from the Dominican Republic. Bell, Fernandez, Manny Lee, Nelson Liriano, and Jose Nunez with them during the regular season and playoff ineligible, all from the Dominican Republic. Opposite way, but McGuire backpedals and makes the catch. Blue Jays break through with a run here in the third. We'll be right back. So the blimp decided to stay over for an extra day. Where do they headquarter those blimps? Well, this one's from Carson City, right?
I don't know. You've got the card there.
I don't have a card. I'm just making it up as I go along. I was looking to you for insight, and as usual, came up empty. There's a strike to Phillips. So here it is. It's the Goodyear blimp Columbia.
From Carson.
From Carson, California. The pilot is John Creighton, and he lives in Redondo Beach. So send your cards and letters there. Bottom of the third.
Kelly Gruber in tight this time for Tony Phillips. Beat out a bunt. In fact, Phillips and Gallego, if you missed the game, now it goes to 2 strikes. He backpedals. They're on base 5 of 8 times with 3 runs scored. That from the bottom of the order. They set up a few things. As Phillips played defensively, made an exceptional play on Nelson Liriano.
Inside 1-2. There's another Stottlemyer sibling. Mel Jr. is in the Kansas City organization. He's a reliever who worked at all 3 minor league levels, A through AAA, this year, and actually did pretty well in the second half of the season. Ground ball foul. At Memphis, the Royals' AA affiliate, he was 3-0 with 6 saves, ERA of 1.5. Then they moved him up to their AAA team, speaking of Mel Jr. now, and he went 1-1 with an ERA of 2.35. So it's very likely that there will be 2 Stottlemyers in the major leagues before long. Fastball high, 2-2.
Bob Mel Jr. started in the Houston organization, and twice within a year and a half had rotator cuff problems, had to have the surgery, so he's bouncing back as the reliever, as you said. Al Widmar really focuses on a couple of things. One is to try and soften the front leg. He has that recoil with that stiff front leg, which is a little bit harder on the arm. a little slider that all but backed up in a bad spot, and he got away with it because he throws it so hard. And also Widmar focuses on balance. And as soon as he starts flying all over the pitcher's mound, Widmar knows he's starting to overthrow.
As Javier steps in against Stottlemyer, consider these numbers. In their 88 games this year, without Jose Canseco, the various people they used in right field hit a combined .237 with exactly 1 home run and 29 RBIs. In slightly fewer games, Canseco hit 17 home runs and drove home 57. Ground ball, second base, Liriano, easy play. 2 down here in the last of the third with Toronto leading 1-0.
You know, some of the problems for Toronto when they go on dirt and grass, they may not seem obvious, but they are. They're so used to the ball playing more than half your games, in fact about 2/3 with all the other artificial surfaces in the league, and they play back and the ball gets to them in a hurry so they can stay back in the double play situation. You just saw Liriano. He waited way back for the ball to get to him, didn't charge it. Kelly Gruber has a problem with that on occasion too, coming from the artificial surface to dirt and grass. It sets the timing of the infielders, especially on the DP.
Here's Weiss, the rookie of the year in 1988. North Carolina product. Played with B.J. Surhoff and Scott Bankhead, among others there.
B.J. Surhoff was a shortstop. Coach said, B.J., we're going to make you a catcher because we got a kid named Walt Weiss coming. He's still not 100% with the knee. He's still building it up or trying to. And for Walt Weiss, some plays he has to make on the run. He can't really get down on the ball. Boy, what a brilliant fielder he was all last year.
Left center field, Mosby and Bell. Again, they converge, and this time Lloyd lets George take it. So, Stottlemyer sets them down in order. 1-0 Toronto. Tonight on NBC, our cameras at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Goreltz for the Giants. Maddox for the Cubs. Game 1 of the NLCS. And strike 1 to Tony Fernandez, who walked his first time up, and a rarity. He's walked 3 times already in the series. And he's not exactly the kind of guy who works a lot of base on balls.
Well, a lot of people felt Jimmy Williams early this year thought he might be the ideal number 2 hitter. When the season started, Tony hit some leadoff, hit second. Gruber was hitting third. But his on-base percentage wasn't high enough. Plus, when he had the knee surgery, he wasn't running as much as he did early in his career. No question that getting hit earlier this season set him back a lot. He came back much more quickly than anybody thought he would or could.
In fact, came back against Oakland and doubled in his first at-bat. Sharply to McGuire. An unassisted put out for Mark.
Well, you get a good chance to see what that forkball does to a hitter. It fools you in so many ways. I mean, the arm speed is the same as the fastball or any other pitch in the delivery. But you get the change of speeds. You get the difference in direction 2 ways. Side to side and from up to a downward motion. So it's like a 3 or 4 dimensional pitch.
Ernie Witt struck out on a forkball his first time up. Morris fan 2. And down low. Interesting to contrast what Moore did this year against his former Seattle teammate Mark Langston. Moore was hotly pursued when he became a free agent after the '88 season, although the casual baseball fan who looked at his record might have wondered why. He was 66 and 96 for his career and an ERA of about 4.5, but under vastly different conditions with a generally poor team and in a hitter's park in Seattle. But inside baseball people knew what Moore could do, knew the kind of stuff he had. This year he goes 19 and 11, ERA 2.61. His more celebrated ex-teammate Mark Langston, one of the game's great lefties, a combined 16 and 14, ERA 2.74 between Seattle and Montreal. 1-1 pitch, slapped to second. Phillips gobbles it up.
You know, Bob, you think of the King, I immediately think of their first-year manager, Jimmy Lefevre. How hard it is to develop a pitching staff up there. When you look at the guys who were up there, just the 2 you mentioned, They become successful, be even more successful the more they pitch out of that little ballpark. You think of the Rick Honeycutts, Lloyd Bannister, Matt Young. I mean, and more, it's just almost an impossible park to sustain a career in if you're a pitcher. Balls flatter, it's so frustrating.
Kelly Gruber now on the first pitch. Another chance for Phillips. Moore makes quick work of the Blue Jays in the top half of the fourth after 3.5 in Oakland. Toronto leads game 2 1-0. As these fans and all right-thinking Americans know, this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
What a brash middle-aged man you are becoming.
And I am becoming middle-aged rapidly.
I used to say young,
7 years
no
seated
longer.
alongside you has definitely sped the aging process up considerably. Top of the order in the bottom of the fourth. Todd Stottlemyer nursing a 1-0 lead, trying to get the Blue Jays even. Henderson beat out a ground ball to deep short in the last of the first, but then was running as Lansford lined to short into a double play. Big breaking ball is up high.
Blue Jays are playing Ricky Henderson shallow at third and first, but Ricky doesn't bunt a whole lot. You can see how Henderson approaches hitting differently with a man on base than when he's trying to lead off an inning. Much deeper crouch of Stottlemyer, a high fastball power pitcher. So he's in a deeper crouch so that the umpire will call the high pitch a ball.
And Todd falls behind 3-0. For Ricky Henderson, who's had a career that's building toward Hall of Fame credentials if he's not there already, this is his first true postseason experience. He played in the mini playoffs in 1981, strike season. It doesn't really count. That entire season was so messed up. Full count now.
Well, I think Billy Martin said it first. People have said it since then that this is the greatest leadoff hitter of all time. Billy nor any of us ever saw the leadoff men, but Ricky Henderson's got to be among them.
And he draws the walk. The tying run aboard in the person of a man who has averaged more runs per game than any active player and scored more runs than any major leaguer in this decade.
And interesting that Todd Stottlemyer and Ernie Wett say the guy we want to keep off base, but you also know that he's got some power and he can jump on a fastball right down the middle. Stottlemyer trying to overthrow, loses the strike zone.
Stottlemyer works to Lansford, down and away. At various times in his career, Carney has flashed good power. He's hit 19 homers 3 times, but last year he hit only 7, and this year but 2, driving in 52 and hitting .336.
You watch Ricky on first base, he doesn't just have just one way of stealing. You'll see he'll try and time the rhythm of the pitcher in case the pitcher gets in a habit of looking once and going home, looking once and going home. But once they freeze him and stop him, he goes to a different approach. Doesn't take as big a lead as Vince Coleman. He might vary his lead. Joe Morgan had a measured lead, different against left-handers than right-handers, but always the same, 15 or 13 feet. Lou Brock, shorter lead, momentum towards second base. Maury Wills will give you all kinds of different looks. Amazing thing about Ricky, his stolen base years have been on dirt and grass. Harder to run on than artificial surface. Not quite as quick on the dirt.
Stottlemyer sets, and the 1-0 to Lansford. Ricky goes with throws. Safe.
That was a time when he timed the delivery. One look. Stottlemyer didn't freeze him. But that's what they want to do with Ricky Henderson, not show him the same look twice, but it didn't matter. Ernie Wood had no chance.
It's his 3rd stolen base of the series.
Excellent pitch to throw on. Ernie's release time is good. Fairly accurate throw, but even if it's right in the bag, he doesn't get him. Now Ricky might become even more dangerous. There is, see? Very unusual because Todd Stottlemyer did that quick pitch where he balked, but he changed his rhythm and unloaded in a hurry. And Ricky timed it with the right foot off the ground, and boom.
The 1-1 to Lansford. Tries to go the opposite way and grounds it foul. Now he has much less of a hole on the right side. Liriano had been cheating towards second base, and McGriff holding Henderson. And there was a gaping hole between them. Now it's closed up.
And because Carney Lansford hits the ball all over, if both middle infielders cheat for Ricky, he's got holes on both sides. So last night, remember, they moved Liriano closer to Fred McGriff. So he can't hold Ricky Henderson on. And with 2 strikes, I don't think he's going, but we'll see. Tony thought he was. Was the daylight play. Pitcher sees daylight between Fernandez and the runner. He goes. Then they've got the time play. Most clubs do that. What Fernandez will do also is when he decoys from behind the runner, he'll signal to a pitcher.
He's going for third.
He sure is.
But Lansford, with 2 strikes on him, has to swing at it and fouls it off.
And a lot of hitters don't like it when you got 2 strikes. I know some hitters will say, just plant yourself, stay still, don't distract me. But when you got a bat control guy like Lansford, I'm sure he and Ricky Henderson have talked it over. Ricky says, do you mind? And Lansford says, no, go ahead if you want to. It'll create a hole for me while they're covering. See, Fernandez gets behind Ricky Henderson. Then when he backpedals, he'll go to his pitcher with his bare hand as if you can go home now. I'm backing into my normal position.
A's trail 1-0, bottom of the 4th. Here's the 1-2 pitch coming to Lansford. He goes again. It's taken high. Here's the throw. He's in there. Henderson, one of the game's premier players for a decade, but no postseason play since '81. You can tell how charged up he is for the series. Watch his reaction after he goes headfirst into third ahead of Gruber's tag.
There are so many things on this play, and Ricky got kicked pretty good by Kelly Gruber. He's all charged up, but you get the infield in now. There was a hole created in case Lansford did hit it. Stottlemyer sped up his delivery, threw a ball.
The infield comes in halfway, and Lansford lines it over them for a hit, and the game is knotted at 1.
It was Ricky's slide yesterday. Today, 2 stolen bases.
Now, obviously, the pitching approach changes with the infield coming in, so you can't say for sure the ball would have been hit in the same place. But if that ball's hit with the infield back, Fernandez probably catches it.
Well, it's interesting because what Stottlemyer would like to have gotten with his high heat is a strikeout or a pop-up. But Lansford bats controls too good. And he really hasn't been able to keep the ball down to get a ground ball. He throws it up. Somebody figured out that they thought Ricky Henderson was worth 1 run per game. Not just since he came to the Oakland Athletics, but over his career. Name me another player you can say that about. I guess maybe Boggs, although Boggs won't steal your base, hit a lot of doubles.
Parker. Well, he inside-outed 2 pitches in his first at-bat, wound up popping to the only man on the left side of the infield with the switch on, Kelly Gruber, and this time he fouls one in the left field direction.
I don't think he tried to inside-out it. I think Todd Stottlemyer's fastball is so good, Dave Parker can flare it maybe, but maybe not get the barrel of the bat out, unless it's a mediocre fastball. Another base stealer on.
He stole 37 this year, a career high. Lansford's rookie year was 78, and he first played in the playoffs the next year for the Angels in the 79 LCS against the Orioles. Bluffs the go, and Parker pops it back foul.
We mentioned yesterday the extremely high total of double plays that the Oakland Athletics hit into. The lineup yesterday had hit into 131. It's different today. And One of the principal violators of that has been Dave Parker. Hits the ball hard, hits a lot of balls on the ground, doesn't run well. And that's why Tony La Russa, though, does know. He doesn't walk much. He will put the ball in play. He may be going. Nope.
Pitch out.
One way the game has changed, I think, over the last 20, 25 years, the counts that people run on are so much different. 0-2 last night, 1-2. Used to be the 0-2-1, 3-1, 3-2, of course, 2-2 on occasion.
Mark McGwire is on deck.
It's more so in the other league and more so with the Don Zimmer.
He'll try anything.
Oh, his bases loaded, starting runners, even when all three of them, even when the count's not full. And he's been so successful with it so many times. What a great year he had managing. Interesting to see which way the wind is going to be blowing tonight, if at all at night. It can change, and usually at this time of the year, it's off Lake Michigan into the hitters' faces.
Toward the end of this game today, I'm going to check with Chicago for a weather report, try and give you a preview. Foul back to the screen. We're in the last half of the fourth. Tied up at 1. Each team has 3 hits. The Toronto run off Mike Moore was unearned because of Mark McGwire's error on Mookie Wilson's bounder.
This is something Al Widmar's had Todd Stottlemyer do. Be a little more thoughtful on the mound. You get a couple of strikes. You don't want to make a mistake. Step off. Gather your thoughts. Think of what you're going to do, what you're going to throw, where you want to throw it.
Our producer, Ken Edmondson, just passed a little message along through the headset, which knocked me back on my heels. Kenny, you weren't pulling my leg, were you? He's telling me they're predicting a game time temperature tonight at Wrigley of 30. And that'll teach them to play with the baseball gods. You're supposed to play in sunshine at Wrigley Field. There goes the runner. And a little tip back.
However, that's for only little snits like you who would cut classes. What about those devoted youngsters whose parents forced them to go to school without a transistor in their ear and read about the game in the paper tomorrow? That's why you're a lousy student.
Any youngster forced by his parents on those rare occasions when the Cubs qualify for the playoffs to go to school during a day game should consider running away from home.
It ought to be a civic holiday, huh, in the Chicago area?
You bet. Hey, I told my mom and dad games 6 and 7 of the '64 series with your Yankees against the Cardinals, you can send me to school, but I'm not getting on the bus. So you got a choice. You can let me sit here in the living room or you'll never see me again. They were actually tempted to take choice 2.
You beat me to it.
Still nobody out. Here comes the 2-2 pitch.
Well, that's what Parker does so well. He just, the good pitches, he just fouls off, fights off, and then you let that fastball drift a little bit out over the plate where he can get the arms out. For last year, Dave Parker had something to prove. Parker last year was hurt already.
In 1976, the Yankees and Royals combined for 9. That was the AL record until now, and in just 2 games, there have been 10. He lays off, they check at third, he didn't go, and the count is full. The major league record for steals in a playoff, 15 by the Mets and Dodgers in the National League last year.
Al Widmer looked like he was getting ready for a trip to the mound, didn't he?
Runner goes. Hit down to McGriff. No play at second. Lansford in scoring position, and Parker retired for the first out.
So without Canseco's bat, and Tony La Russa likes to play aggressively and start runners a lot because of all the double plays anyway, but maybe even a little bit more now with Canseco out with a migraine headache. Tony Fernandez now in for a chat with Stottlemyer. He wants to know, with a man on second, what set of signs are going to go to. And here comes Al Widmer. He wants to talk, and you could see he was getting ready as he got closer and closer to Cito Gaston. Try and get out to Todd Stottlemyer and maybe just go over the scouting report on McGuire. Perhaps to go instead of the high fastballs, even though it's a low ball hitter, McGuire, maybe get him to work a sinker ball in. Todd Stottlemyer, the kind of young man who throws a lot of pitches, goes deep in the count, and he shows all of his pitches to the hitters. It's interesting, Bob, earlier in the year, Todd Stottlemyer's first 2 starts coming out of spring training after he sat on the bench for a while were against Kurt McCaskill and Nolan Ryan. His 2 first starts were no hitters into the 9th inning against him. Then he sat the bench, and then he and Al Widmar had a big difference in pitching philosophy. Now, Widmar wanted him to try and work 4 or 5 different pitches in, curve, slider, a couple kinds of fastball and change. And when Todd was sent down, he was very upset. Widmar in the organization, because he pitched so well in the minor leagues winter ball, and then he couldn't handle all those pitches. So he's become more of a basic pitcher. Fastball, breaking ball, and changeup.
The entire Bay Area buzzing about the World Series possibilities. 1971, the only season to date when both the A's and the Giants had been in the playoffs before, and they each lost. The Giants to the eventual world champion Pirates, and the young A's in the first of their 5 straight division championship seasons swept by the Orioles, who went to the World Series under Earl Weaver for the 3rd straight time. Here's McGuire, and let's turn the page in the scout's notebook on him.
You saw him hit a high pitch for a home run yesterday, a breaking ball, hit a high pitch for a base hit earlier.
Wraps this one fair right over third, and the A's have the lead. Down into the corner with Bell chasing it. A double for McGuire. 2-1 Oakland.
By Tony La Russa, starting Lansford with a slugger up. His 3rd hitter, Parker. He avoids the double play, gets the runner in scoring position, and with that newly found open stance, Mark McGuire has been able to get the bat out a little bit quicker. Something, now that ball looked like it hit on the inside of the foul line, and with that kind of spin off a strong hitter, usually that ball goes foul, but I think it hit a little bit of an upslope or downslope on the inside of the line, and it stayed fair.
It hugged the chalk, and the A's have the lead. Henderson takes outside. Last year, in the sweep over Boston, McGuire hit .333 and had a home run off Boddicker. Had a home run last night against Steve. A single and a double today against Stottlemyer. Henderson doesn't get it.
It's one of the first changeups Stottlemyer's throwing, and maybe that's what Al Widmar wanted him to do. Either sitting on your hard stuff, hard slider, hard fastball, and a little different look, more of a crossfire for a change. It's got to be more than a 1-speed pitcher. That's what Widmar told him, I believe.
Grounded foul.
Toronto bullpen gets up now, Bob.
They've got a left-hander up. David Wells getting ready.
Who ordinarily for David Wells, he is a late game pitcher. With an off day tomorrow, and he hasn't had much work lately. Got John Cerruti down there also. Dale Ford.
Two balls and 2 strikes. McGuire at second. 2 runs home and 1 out in the last of the 4th. 2-1 Oakland. Struck him out. For Todd Stottlemyer, strikeout number 2.
So with Henderson, we saw a couple of different pitches, the changeup, and then the with the seams, a little bit of a sinker.
Stottlemyer didn't have a start against the A's this year. Last year as a rookie, he started 3 games against them and was pummeled. He allowed 15 runs in 13 innings against Oakland hitters. So that's a daunting history that he brings into this game, a must-win for his teammates.
Tough to throw fastballs by a guy like this, and you can see what happens. So he's a fastball hitter. Let's start him off with the breaking ball. You don't throw it for a strike, which has been Stottlemyer's problem in his young career thus far. That's an even more attractive pitch to hit. Let's see if he goes change now. He did.
Tony La Russa, 45 years old and a big league manager for a decade, succeeded Don Kessinger as the White Sox manager mid-1979. Took them to the AL West title in '83. Big cut, and he doesn't catch up with it.
May have been the biggest mistake the owners of the White Sox ever made. And I think they may admit it. He's a Raleigh Heman guy, Tony La Russa. Well, Heman, who helped build that Orioles club now and got him into the last weekend.
Considering the way the White Sox were headed and where La Russa wound up, he wasn't fired, he was pardoned. Called strike, 2-2. La Russa's tenure, as we look at Phillips awaiting his chance, is already the longest of any Oakland A's manager. Dick Williams and Alvin Dark each lasted 3 years. It's 3 and change now for Tony, and he got a contract extension at mid-year this season. Just missed. Full count.
He has pretty much stayed with off-speed stuff to this point with Hasse. And with first base open and Phillips up, who struck out in the third and is not the long ball threat that Hasse is, he may go off speed again. Just missed with a backdoor curveball the last pitch.
Hasse was always... Go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say that was a decoy by Witt. He put down the signs and then wanted Stottlemyer to back off. And Hasse stepped out because they may think, Ernie might have thought, the veteran catcher, that they finally picked up the series of signs, second base, and were relating either the pitch or the location. And Ernie Witt went out and they changed it. And he just verbalized this sign. No matter what he puts down, I'll guarantee you, he and Todd Stottlemyer have arranged it. But it's tougher on the infielders to move it if you do that.
And a 2-out walk to Hasse, which gives Phillips a chance here with runners at first and second.
He wasn't going to let him hit a fastball, was he?
Now batting, second baseman, Tony Phillips.
Widmar and Gaston watching very closely, with Wells heating up in the bullpen.
Ernie Witt's already motioned out to his infielders. Play a little deeper, knock anything down. Can see the infield hit. Play deeper for a decent runner.
Phillips struck out his first time, takes high.
Stottlemyer's just lost the release point in the jargon of the pitching coaches and pitchers. He's a little confused out there now. There are times his stuff is not as good out of the stretch as out of the windup. It's not uncommon among some young pitchers.
Foul back. A ball and a strike. The A's have been predictably aggressive from the very first pitch. Usually it's worked. Occasionally they've been burned, as when Latchman waved this man Phillips home on Gallegos' bloop double late in the game last night, but it was still the right move to make because it required a perfect play by George Bell to get Phillips at the plate. On 1-1.
And in a way, Bob, the Blue Jays have allowed them to be aggressive. The scouting reports will tell that this team will make some mistakes, but the second inning yesterday, if they get that extra base hit, tag on the extra run or two, it takes a little bit of that over-aggressiveness away. Same thing today. Got a situation where it looked like they might come up with a couple runs. First 2 runners on in the second, they come up empty again in the third. And they've allowed the Oakland offense to take more liberties. They're not tacking on the runs. That's been their problem for the last month.
Witt flashes the sign. Stottlemyer sets, brings it home on 1-2. And Phillips drives one into right center field, but Mosby's got a beat on it. The A's score 2, lead 2. Lansford and McGuire each had big hits, but the series' most dynamic player has been Ricky Henderson.
Game 2 of the American League Championship Series is brought to you by Goodyear. When it comes to tires and auto service, nobody fits you like Goodyear. And by Today's Chevrolet, who invites you to see why nobody's winning like the heartbeat of America.
Lansford and McGuire each knocked in a run, but Henderson set the tone for the inning, opening with a walk and then promptly stealing second and third. Lee Mazzilli hitless in 4 trips thus far in the series. More misses down low as we move to the 5th.
Walks always come back to haunt you, don't they? Or usually, but more so when you walk Ricky Henderson leading off an inning.
Threw a fastball by him. Moore is 29 years old. Attended Oral Roberts University. 8th year in the major leagues. His 1-1 pitch.
You know, I think Dave Duncan has been somewhat surprised at how tough Mike Moore is. You know, he said he goes after hitters, and that's a common baseball expression. But they thought he was more of a nibbler, that he didn't throw this hard. Wasn't this effective with a hard fork ball as he refined it in the slider. But part of it probably was the part that will knock your confidence out and make you a nibbler. Seattle's kingdom.
Tony La Russa puts it this way about Duncan, and we'll tell you after this pitch, which Mazzilli bounces to Phillips. A busy day for Tony, and he throws him out. La Russa says if you took every category that would be relevant about a pitching coach, preparation, insight, ability to communicate, the respect he commands from the others on the coaching staff and from the players, this man Duncan is a 10 on a 10 scale in all of them. Even as a young player in the A's organization, surrounded by guys who'd be much bigger stars, Reggie and Sal Bando and Rick Monday and Joe Rudy and Catfish Hunter, even as a young man, Duncan had the presence that others respected. When he spoke, people tended to listen.
And Reggie especially, because he and Dave Duncan are still the closest of friends. Spent a lot of time together. Of course, I'm sure Reggie Jackson picked up a lot about pitching and how to hit from this man.
Liriano. A ball and a strike to him. Duncan wasn't much of a hitter himself, a low average hitter, had occasional power, had some years where he popped 15, 16 home runs. But it was as a handler of pitchers that he was able to hang around the big leagues for several years. Boy, Hassey's had a tough inning. First foul tip,
and you
made
will
him especially uncomfortable, and that one took a bite out of him too.
You will with that split-fingered fastball because the hitters swing over the top of it so much. Just top it, hits the dirt, and comes back up under your glove or chest protector. Mike Brewer's got 7 ground ball outs. In fact, the last 4 have been ground ball outs. 3 to Phillips.
Bounces that one foul. Moore has struck out 2. He's walked 1. La Russa made an interesting point about his pitching staff. He said they all benefit from the diffusion of pressure. That's La Russa's term. Sure, Stewart is the ace, 3-time 20-game winner, but none of them has to feel as if they must be the stopper. You got a little piece of it and another piece of Ron Hassey.
Does that sound like Charlie Finley's old Oakland A's with Vida Blue and Catfish and
Kenny Holtzman, fingers in the bullpen.
Blue Moon Odom came along then. It was an outstanding pitcher. Then Mike Norris was added a little bit later on. They diffused the pressure also because that was an outstanding staff.
Well, the A's had a chance, an outside chance, to have 4 20-game winners this year. Stewart was the only one who got there. He won 21, but Moore and Storm Davis each won 19, and Bob Welch had 17.
And for obvious reasons, Mike Moore didn't pick up his 20th or get a shot at it the last Sunday because they clinched in the playoffs coming up. Bob Welch has been a much more effective pitcher in the Coliseum here than on the road because Moore's had such a dominant season. Welch pitches on the road. There's Bob. Oh, and Jim Corsi, who's not eligible. They're keeping him around just in case somebody might get hurt.
Something to keep in mind, because the A's clinched early, and then Welch, in La Russa's mind and in Duncan's judgment, wasn't able to pitch game 2, holding him back till Saturday. Only Stewart, of the 4 starters for the A's, is going on his normal rest. The others have 6 days between starts. So the kind of work program, as Liriano draws a walk with 1 out here, the kind of work program that Duncan supervises is very important, so these guys don't get out of their groove with the extended rest between outings. Well, there's an appropriate story.
He pitched out of trouble early. After the hard slide by Ricky, a double play that wasn't turned, and meant a lot in this ball game. That ball game as Ricky has today.
Mosby grounded out and singled, 1 for 6 in the series. Liriano held by McGuire. 2-1 A's, top of the 5th, 1 out.
Hasse looking into Duncan and La Russa. You know, it's a slumping Blue Jays team, and sometimes Duncan will give the pitch out sign. Sometimes La Russa, he had him leaning. They know Cito Gaston almost forced with the lack of offense recently, and that's in Ron Schuler's scouting report. Hasse appearing in again.
Tony thought they had him, and they nearly did.
They won't only call pitch outs. I'm sure you'll see a lot of those shots Wrigley Field tonight with Craig and Don Zimmer. They'll call when to step off the rubber to see if they can read the base runner, when they should throw over.
Any slight motion could be the true indication, and you never know. Remember all those years Roger Craig was Sparky Anderson's pitching coach in Detroit, and nobody could ever break the code. Moore works to Mosby, and it's outside, and they were flashing all kinds of complicated signs, and finally when Roger left Detroit, he revealed that the simple sign for the pitch out was whether or not he had his hand on an old length of pipe that was hanging in the runway. He'd reach up and grab the pipe, pitch out. If he didn't have his hand there, nothing on. Meanwhile, signs are being flashed like crazy, and all the geniuses in the other dugout were trying to decode it.
That was too obvious. I think Roger Craig was just putting you on, too.
That wasn't the
That
only
was
guy
too
he
easy to
told.
figure out. Hand on the pipe or off the
But
pipe.
you know, it's like
Are you
hiding
kidding me?
under the bed. It's the last place anybody would look. You could be there for hours.
He hooked you just like a big bass. You fell for that one.
McGuire fields it in foul ground.
Every ball game you see from here on in, you'll be watching for the old hand off the pipe or hand on the pipe signal, huh?
And most of the ball games I see from here on in, I'll have plenty of time to let my mind wander.
Toronto looking for something to pick them up after last night with a lead behind Dave Stieb.
Moore working very deliberately and then looking Liriano back.
And what they're looking for could be as simple as hand on the pipe or off. Hands on the knees or off. Is that an indication he may or may not be going? That's an oversimplification. For years, players have done that. Another thing players do, and it's so common, they get the steal sign and they will look at second base as if it moved. And that is one of the most common ones. Get the steal, look at second base. Where am I heading? Hadn't moved for years.
1-2 now to Mosby. Talking about the depth of this Oakland staff and the chance of having 4 20-game winners. The Orioles did it, of course, in '71 with Palmer, McNally, Cuellar, and Pat Dobson. But there hasn't been a staff with even as many as 2 20-game winners in the same year since the Cardinals of '85 with Tudor and Andujar, and hasn't been one in this league since the White Sox of '83, Tony La Russa's team, with Lamar Hoyt, the Cy Young Award winner, and Richard Dotson. Greater reliance on the bullpens cuts down the number of decisions for starting pitchers, so it lessens the possibilities.
This bat's getting some moss on it, isn't it? It's getting old, aging. How long has Mosby been up there? You got your stopwatch on?
The pace of this at-bat lulls the crowd even further, and just like last night, there's not a playoff atmosphere here. People are hardly at the edges of their seats.
When Ricky stole a couple bases and barreled in the third, there was a lot of excitement after he scored.
But it isn't sustained throughout. You don't really feel a playoff atmosphere. For the last 3 or 4 innings last night, but only then. There goes the runner. Good pitch to throw on for Hasse. But Liriano is safe as the throw was high. It was a perfect catcher's pitch, high and outside. But he couldn't catch Liriano.
You know, I think Ron Hasse, who has had some knee problems, has a lot of difficulty springing out of the crouch in a hurry. Liriano didn't have a particularly good jump. They had frozen him pretty well. But Hasse intent on maybe trying to give a low target in case there's a forkball pitch or a slider. And then when the ball was high, for him to really bust out of his crouch in a hurry is tough.
Here's the 2-2 pitch. Toward the hole. Phillips dives and smothers it. Throws.
Oh,
got him. It would have been good enough just to save the run and keep it on the infield. But he wasn't satisfied with that.
And for him to make the kind of play he does now and last night off Liriano is something, because he has been forced with injuries to play so many positions and to focus so hard on his defense, whether it's the outfield, the infield. Oh, what a marvelous play and a great camera shot. With a very fast runner, Lloyd Mosby, who appeared to have a good... That last long lunge may have lost it for Mosby, and that's not taking anything away from Tony Phillips. He's been moving so much on the count, anticipating, not gifted with great speed, watching the sign and location and moving when the ball's in the air from the pitcher.
Now Mookie Wilson with a chance to tie it. Liriano at third, but with 2 down.
It's the kind of things that deflate you. Man in scoring position, you say, boy, it might be through. We got a run and something else going.
1-1.
And in a way, we're seeing somewhat the opposite of what happens to the Toronto Blue Jays. Some feel that the Toronto pitching staff has to get 30 outs. And that puts a burden on Cito Gaston's pitching staff. And seen in this, by sound fundamental positioning and play, you give a team less than 27 outs with great plays like that.
Another chance for Phillips. Has to hurry with Mookie running and gets him. The A's have built a 2-1 lead on Henderson's legs, Lansford and McGuire's bats, and Phillips' leather. Thanks to the unique format of the skins game, a single putt could be worth as much as $450,000. 2 days of great golf and great fun as we enjoy a round with one of the best foursomes ever. It's Thanksgiving weekend on NBC. We provide this as a public service so you can make your plans far in advance.
Is that a kind of setup that's almost made for Lee Trevino? The way he used to hustle golf in Texas.
Here is Javier, and an interesting matchup.
He looks
Javier,
better, doesn't he?
Yeah, it looks as if that headache might be fading.
He's moving around. He was all but dormant early in the game. That pained look on his face.
Line drive. Foul. Just foul, says Dave Phillips. Down the right field line. You know, you think about an umpire's situation. They have no time to go sit in a dugout. They're involved, at least potentially, in every play. And in postseason, when you work the lines, left field or right field, you could go an entire game or hundreds of pitches without anything coming your way. But when it does, you can't be napping. You've got to be alert every single second.
And you know how tough a call it is in a 4-umpire situation? That ball was out there so fast, by the time the guy turns, it's all but bounced and gone. Davey Phillips right there almost hit him.
And Javier takes a seat now, becoming strikeout victim number 3 for Todd Stottlemyer. Speaking of the umpires, a reminder, we'll present our State Farm Rules of the Game feature during the 7th inning stretch timeout. You know, that was an interesting matchup. Stottlemyer and Javier, the sons
64.
of fathers who played in the 64 series. Julian Javier was hurt and only appeared in 1 game for the Cardinals. Dal Maxfield replaced him at second, and Dick Groat played short as the Cards beat the Yanks in 7. And of course, Mel Stottlemyer had 3 starts, winning game 2 over Gibson, no decision game 5 against Gibby, and then they each pitched on 2 days rest in the 7th game. And the Cardinals eventually broke through against Stottlemyer and won the game 7-5, with Gibson going all the way on guts alone.
A little different Stottlemyer so far this inning, not just because of the strikeout, but looks like he's got a little faster pace, and he is going more to the sinker ball now, getting the ball down. They were jumping all over his high stuff. The high fastball, when he tried to get a slider down, they both stayed upstairs. A little quicker pace for Stottlemyer now. Changeup.
Weiss bounces one to Liriano's left, and Nelson tosses him out.
4-3 has become a familiar song thus far in this game, hasn't it? Especially on the Oakland side.
Well, let's see. Liriano has handled 3 chances, but Phillips has the last 5 assists. All 3 in the 5th, with a Liriano walk thrown in, and the last 2 in the 4th for Oakland. And Phillips has 6 total chances so far in the game. Here's the man. His last time up, he walked, stole second, stole third, came home on Lansford's single. Lansford eventually was plated on McGuire's double over the bag at third. Down low to Ricky. Bottom of the 5th, 2-1 Oakland, trying to take a stranglehold on the series. Through the hole, he's aboard again, all 3 times. He didn't have a hit last night, but he was on 3 times then too. Hit by a pitch once and walked twice.
I don't know when I've seen him more charged up. Ricky Henderson, I mean, every time he gets a hit or steals a base, he's very animated. Boy, he clapped his hands after he got that last base hit, just relishing the thought of a couple stolen bases looking him in the face again. Watch this reaction. Stottlemyer started with a breaking ball, got behind.
Lansford lined into a double play, had an RBI single, and time is called.
There's another important thing for a hitter to help out the base stealer Henderson. When Stottlemyer held the ball, Ricky was come to a stationary stop. He was frozen. The legs might tense up. Lansford takes the pressure off him, not only himself, but off Ricky Henderson, and makes Stottlemyer start all over by calling time and stepping out.
Inside to Lansford. Another factor, if you're wondering about Todd Stottlemyer being perturbed by Henderson. Todd had only 1 balk called on him this year. Balks in general were down 70% from the dizzying totals last year when they decided to enforce that discernible stop rule to a ridiculous extent.
You know what that did to earn run averages too? An example, Dave Duncan thinks perhaps his pitching staff was better last year, even though the ERA is so much better this year. Last year, the Oakland staff had 75 balks. Duncan said that 35 runs were directly attributable to that. Directly. This year, they've got just 6. And just think what it's done to all ERAs, especially Oakland's.
Stewart had a bunch of them last year, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Henderson away from first. Dancing around, taking an antsy lead.
Carney again. Not going to let them hold Ricky Henderson in a stationary position too long. It almost seems like it's time by Lansford. Like a 2 or 3 beats, call time. Quick
Not
pitch.
going. There's the pitch out.
I mean, it was such a tip-off. Ricky Henderson might have been going, but you see that quick delivery or quicker move. 1 or 2 things: a quick move to go to first for a pickoff, or a quick move to unload for a pitch out. And Ricky read the pitch out. On 2-1.
Stottlemyer holding the ball, trying to vary the rhythm, and then Lansford stepping out.
I counted to 1,004 that time before Carney called time.
Witt, Steinbach, and Hasse, none of the three has been able to cut a runner down. Both teams successful on all their attempts. Lansford stepping out again. He was Wade Boggs' immediate predecessor at third base for the Red Sox. A lot of people didn't think Boggs could hit at the big league level. He didn't break in until he was about 25 years old, and they were thinking about using him at first because Lansford was there. Then after the trade to Oakland, he was able to play third. The runner going. Fernandez has no play at second base and throws on to first and gets the out there to end the inning. A scoreless fifth. It remains 2-1. Goodyear blimp overhead. The dirigible moving ever so slowly through a cloudless Oakland sky. And Freddie McGriff cuts and misses at Mike Moore's first pitch in the top half of the sixth. He'll be followed by Bell and Fernandez. It's a one-run game. A's up 2-1.
Let's see if he flip-flops his pitching pattern again. He's been throwing a lot of fork balls to the left-handed hitters, getting the ground ball to second. He goes with 2 fastballs. So as the word gets around the bench, as the Blue Jays players are watching his pitching style, G. Nelson up. Throws hard, is a great changeup. Go through the lineup a couple times. The pitcher changes on you.
Left field, Ricky Henderson shading his eyes. And McGriff still can't bust loose.
He's trying about everything. Taking the base on balls, spreading his stance out, moving up a little bit on the plate. Now he appears to be trying to go the opposite way to left field. Trying to level his swing out, and he still can't.
As Tony mentioned, Nelson throwing as Moore works into the sixth here. He threw a half dozen complete games. 3 of those were shutouts in 35 starts. Fastball sails high.
Infielders like to play behind this staff because Dave Duncan insists they keep a relatively quick pace. Don't think too much. Oh, just
left center field, but he got under it.
Hanging slider.
Which Henderson will it be? Center fielder Dave.
And you can see what happened. Ricky Henderson looking into the sun. Dave Henderson looking away from the sun, and Ricky Henderson gives ground.
You know, when the A's picked up Mike Moore right away, as soon as the free agent fishing season opened, watch Ricky having some trouble. Dave comes over, different angle.
Keeps going till he hears the controlling outfielder, the center fielder.
When the A's made their move on Mike Moore, well, it really sent a message to the rest of the division. One that must have made a lot of GMs in the AL West very uncomfortable. Here was a team coming off a division record 104 victories. And they wasted no time bolstering what already was a very deep and very effective pitching staff for Tony La Russa.
And some said, well, will they go after Langston and Sandy Alderson? General manager Reddy said, no, we will not, because we will not destroy our salary structure. We've already got Dave Stewart, multi-year contract, some of the others making money, and Montreal apparently has already offered Langston $9 million for 3 years. So that would just destroy the people who have been so successful for us.
And then with Canseco hurt, they go out and get Ricky Henderson. Complacency is not a problem with this Oakland A's franchise.
Tony La Russa knows, look at Jose, that this team learned to play without Jose. They were relying on him so he was such a dominant offensive force the last few years, and it made all the fringe players happier because they got a little more publicity, they got more at bats, they produced in those clutch situations.
It's a tribute to Oakland's depth and resourcefulness that they went 52 and 36 in Canseco's absence, even though the replacement right fielders did diddly. A called strike, 2-2. Hernandez has walked and grounded out. Has 1 hit in the series. Sharply to short. Comes up nicely for Weiss. In the top half of the 6th, Mike Moore makes a key move through the heart of the Blue Jay order, retiring the 3rd, 4th, and 5th hitters and preserving the 2-1 lead. 34 years ago today, Johnny Padres shut out the Yankees, the first and only Brooklyn World Championship. Don Zimmer and Roger Craig, each a part of that Brooklyn Dodger World Series win. Only one of them can take a champagne bath this fall. Game 1, the Giants and the Cubs, as Parker launches one to deep right center. This may get out of here. Gone. The Cobra comes hissing into the dugout with his first ever postseason home run. First he's ever hit in the playoffs or World Series.
Stottlemyer had been pounding Dave Parker inside, and with that little with-the-seam fastball, it tailed right out over the plate into his wheelhouse. Did he admire it?
Yes,
Shades
Dave.
of Reggie.
It was a thing of beauty, my man. And blowing a big green bubble for good measure as he rounds first. 3-1 Oakland. McGuire has singled and doubled. Down and away.
It came close to that. The Cobra's target.
A bullet down the left field line, and a 3rd straight hit for McGuire. Might be only a single as Bell plays the carom, and that's what it is. A 330-foot single.
That may be it for Todd Stottlemyer. Zip has gone in the fastball. He got through the last inning with the sinker ball, some off-speed stuff. And like last night with a 9-man pitching staff, Cito Gaston, off day tomorrow, of course, going to maybe a little bit bigger ballpark. He's going to go to Jim Acker again.
2 balls that were scorched to greet Stottlemyer here in the 6th. Parker and McGuire send young Todd to the showers. It cleared the Cobra's target. Look at the fan with the glove just in front of it. The kid with the hat knocked askew was the one who came up with the souvenir, so he very nearly had himself a bullseye.
Number 15 for Toronto, number 24.
Jim Acker, who worked last night in relief of Dave Steve, comes on to try and keep it close with the Jays down 3-1 here in the 6th.
He pitched 1 2/3, 1 hit, 1 run yesterday, and 1 strikeout. But hitting Ricky Henderson to load the bases, put him in that position to take the hard slide and break up the double play.
Todd Stottlemyer yielded 7 hits in 5 innings plus. There he is in profile, obscured by several teammates. Dave Henderson lifts one to right center field. Mosby to the track. It's really carrying, and the ball bounces over the fence for a ground rule double, which means that McGuire has to stop at 3rd. Mosby went after that ball as though he had it all the way, and it wound up actually being closer to Mookie Wilson.
It looked to me like Mookie had the longer run. He was playing Henderson in case Henderson was going to try and shoot the ball through the right gap on the ground. And then Mosby just gave ground and let Mookie have it. And Mosby kept going and taking control of center field like Dave Henderson has in left center. Looked like he might have had that. But you can see how the ball carries. Mosby looks, he sees that Mookie's close, and then he just gives in. Perhaps Mookie called for it. It would have been a tough catch for Lloyd Mosby, but really Mookie looked like he had a longer way to go.
Now runners at second and third, a run already home, nobody out. Hasse the hitter, he's grounded into a double play and walk. And ball 1 to him. The infield moves in.
Closer on the left side than the right. Left side, the weaker side. Liriano not quite halfway. He may creep a little bit.
This should get a run home. Mosby into left center field. McGuire tags. So does Dave Henderson. Henderson sprinting for third. The throw heads that way, and he's in. So's McGuire with the 4th run.
And you see the difference in throwing arms and fundamental play. Remember yesterday, Fernandez on second. The ball, similar depth to that, maybe more towards center field than Dave Henderson. He couldn't get the third. But the Oakland A's, Ron Shooter's advanced scouting reports have been very, very incisive. Run on the arms, take a chance. Not only are they not strong throwers, you look at Hasse, modifies his swing with the infield in, a little more uppercut, get the ball to the outfield. Not saying even a good throwing arm would have caught the runner at third base, but it's a balloon-like throw. It's not just that the arms are not strong, sometimes they're very inaccurate.
I believe it was Tom Henke who expressed the opinion before the series began. And it's one that people would disagree with, many would anyway. But he felt the Blue Jay bullpen was deeper than Oakland's. Phillips with the infield moving in with 1 out. And they rule that he went around for strike 1. There's Henke, the closer, but he hasn't had a chance yet. Thus far, the middle relievers for the Blue Jays have only added to their difficulties. Unlike Saturday when we saw them clinch against Baltimore when Frank Wills did a superb job of keeping them close. Acker has been ineffective. Ward last night was wild and ineffective.
And what Dave Henderson getting to third does, changes the inner defense.
Pitch out, nothing on. The Blue Jays are bucking some powerful trends.
John McLaren, who is going to call the pitch out for Cito Gaston, the former catcher out of Houston.
The A's played .667 baseball, winning 2 of every 3 at home this year, and they were 48 and 18 in day games. Base hit over McGriff. Henderson trots home. Phillips comes through. 5-1 Oakland. Acker faces 3 hitters, gives up a ground rule double, a well-hit sac fly, and a ringing single for Phillips to drive home another one. The left-hander David Wells comes out of the pen, and Jose Canseco feels well enough to at least take 1 turn at bat. He's going to hit for Javier, and we'll see whether he stays in the game to play right field. Scratched late from the starting lineup because of a migraine headache. And this guy had headaches of his own. Threw gasoline on a fire. A double, a single, a sac fly.
You don't ever miss an opportunity to get a Canseco's bat in the lineup. You get him against a left-hander like David Wells, who's a fastball pitcher, throws hard. And I'm sure in the hitters meeting with Merv Rettenman, the hitting coach, said the last 2 times out, that came from Ron Shooter again, that Wells has had trouble with his curveball. Plus, you put him in with a lead, you're also going to improve your defense because he can throw. And not that Javier's bad, but Canseco can be an outstanding defensive player. Sometimes he has lapses.
Wells works to him.
And when you get a chance, any chance, to get the best, one of the best players in the game, and you put him in as soon as he's well.
He's 0 for his last 21 postseason at-bats after going 0 for 4 with 3 Ks last night. Hasn't had a postseason hit since the Game 1 grand slam off Tim Belcher at Dodger Stadium in the World Series. Oh, a vicious cut. A ball and a strike.
For a big guy who hits the ball so far, he doesn't have a real long swing.
Runner goes. And no throw.
A great curveball snapped off the table. It looked like Canseco was looking fastball. He did not like the call. But the Oakland Athletics continue to run at will, it appears.
For Phillips, his second steal of the series. He had one last night. The quiet man. Unfortunately for him, most of the bats in that dugout have been quieted too. And it extends back to the latter stages of the regular season.
It's always hard to come back in an Oakland ball club with their pitching staff. Even harder when you're in a slump, as the Blue Jays are. You got Eckersley to back this all up if needed.
Wells 1-2 pitch. Down and in. Witt blocks it, and Phillips holds second.
We were talking about hitters meetings a while ago, and I think the late Charlie Lau, when he was the hitting instructor for Tony La Russa with the White Sox, was one of the first that I heard started that almost on a daily basis, keeping very complex cards about what pitchers will throw in certain situations. Tony La Russa has brought that along, and Rettenmund uses it. So they know what the tendencies of a catcher and a pitcher are to throw in a certain situation.
Canseco strikes out for the 4th time in 5 at-bats in the series.
With him, though, it's usually just a matter of time. Or you better pitch him perfectly, which is not impossible over a short series. Over the long haul, he's going to get anybody.
The switch hitter Walt Weiss now turns around to the right side. He's 0 for 2, flied out, grounded out. Three runs home in the 6th. And a ball. David Wells had one of the more interesting injuries in recent baseball history this year. He said he was sleepwalking when he put his hand through a bathroom window and wound up requiring 5 stitches on his left thumb. He said, I was asleep. The next thing I knew, I woke up in the bathroom with my hand out the window. And then somebody asked him if he was worried about a recurrence of the problem. And he had a response that would have made Yogi proud. He said, if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. Either way, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. The 2-0 pitch. He lays off. Yeah, he should have had that Ed Norton style of sleepwalking. Remember, Ed Norton had radar. When he started sleepwalking, he knew exactly where Ralph Cramden's icebox was. Came downstairs, opened the door, took Ralph and Alice's pizza out, and left.
To show you how reputations precede you. Now, David Wells grew up as a kid, a lot of motorcyclers. It's kind of a well-known story. He said it was fun. He had that instance shortly after that. Mike Flanagan, with his great image, fell down in the bathtub, hurt his eye, and everybody questioned David Wells. They never questioned Mike Flanagan. What happened to him? Similar accidents. John Cerruti now begins to throw.
Their 5th starter sent to the pen for this series, as Flanagan will get the nod in Game 4 Saturday.
He might have turned out to be their 5th starter, but he was their most consistent starter for about 4 months. And the reason he's down there is because he's had experience out of the bullpen. Mike Flanagan really hasn't. Jimmy Key started as a reliever when he was called up with the Blue Jays a few years ago, and now has been starting. He's one of the aces on the staff. So they wanted 2 left-handers, but I'm not sure you need that against the Oakland team with all their right-handed bats. Gaston crossing off another one. Wells, Acker already in this game.
3-2 pitch. It's sharply to Fernandez's left. That'll do it. So sleepwalking David Wells finally gets them out of the 6th, but Cito's got to think of something to do about the somnambulant bats in that Toronto dugout. Canseco stays in, plays right field. in Javier's place. Just before we went to commercial, I guess I meant to say that the Blue Jay hitters were in a somnambulant state rather than the bats themselves. That would truly be an eerie sight, as if Cito Gaston doesn't have enough problems here in the series, if the bats began sleepwalking of their own accord through the dugout. Now here's Moore, staked to a 5-1 lead. He's retired 11 of the last 12. Blue Jays don't have a hit since they got 2 and scored a run in the 3rd. Witt trying to change that.
Fair.
Headed toward the corner. And up against the fence, foul.
You know, there have been stretches for the Toronto Blue Jays over the last few weeks. Not only have they had difficulty scoring runs, they've had difficulty getting 2 hits in the same inning at times. And even more so, extra base hits. Very few home runs as a team, and Freddie McGriff seems to get a lot of the blame, but over the last few weeks, few home runs as a team.
Witt will be followed by Gruber and Mazzilli. We're in the 7th. 0-2.
Mike Moore started this ball game as pretty much hard fastballs, and after inning he went to a lot of fork balls. 2 or 3, then he's back to hard stuff sliders and fastballs. Now he's sinking. Boy, it's hard to figure out a pitcher like this. He can't adjust to his pattern because you see him one way for 2 at-bats and he changes. The 3rd at-bat may go back the other way. Juan Marichal, you mentioned his name last night and earlier today, was a master at that.
Witt stays alive.
Rick Honeycutt, he was up yesterday, did not get in the ball game. Art Kushner, the bullpen coach, who was given a lot of power by Tony La Russa and Duncan down there, another former catcher. He called down, not only is he ready, but is he ready and is his stuff good? Which may determine whether or not a man comes in the game. See right there, he's talking about the release point with Honeycutt.
Moore's 1-2 pitch. Outside. So tonight on NBC, another reminder. The Cubs and the Giants, Don Zimmer and Roger Craig, those longtime buddies who 34 years ago today were celebrating a Brooklyn Dodger World Championship, will go at it tooth and nail.
Isn't it ironic that Don Zimmer once fired Roger Craig? Zimmer took the Padres job. Game 1, Bob just mentioned it, Giants versus Cubs. Ferelts against Maddox, Wrigley Field, and the reason he fired him is because he promised his other old teammate, Johnny Padres, who won that ball game 2-0 you just talked about. He said, if I ever get a manager's job in the major leagues, you're my pitching coach. And Roger Craig understood it. And Roger hired Zim as his 3rd base coach. I mean, it's just the irony of this game. They say it's the good old boy system. Well, in some cases it might. Not in this one. Not with Jimmy Fry hiring Don Zimmer, his old high school buddy. These are just solid baseball people, and this year they're proving it, as they have in the past.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Witt. Leading off in the 7th, with the Blue Jays down 4 runs. If they come out of here in an 0-2 hole, it'll be up to Jimmy Key on Friday. And Witt spoils another one.
To show you how difficult it is to come back on this Oakland Athletics team. We're just in the 7th, but when the Athletics enter the 8th inning with a lead, there are 88 wins and just 4 losses. That has something to do with Vieck and their setup men, Honeycutt.
And now the count goes out full. You know, you talked about Juan Marichal, and we alluded to this last night. Marichal with those 6 20 victory seasons, twice winning 25, 26 another time, and yet never taking the Cy Young Award because he was a contemporary of Koufax and Drysdale, Gibson, and later Seaver. So that puts Stewart's failure to win for 3 straight years in better perspective. But one legitimate gripe that Stu had until this year when La Russa rectified it, Dave had never been selected for the All-Star team. Mike Moore, today's pitcher, made the All-Star team for the first time in his career, and Stewart remarkably had not been selected in either 87 or 88. This year he was not only selected, but La Russa, as the All-Star manager, started him.
Well, a lot of that has to do is you have to pick somebody from each team. So when you've got McGuire and Canseco, and you can go on with some of the other outstanding players they have, the pitcher gets overlooked. And unfortunately, it happened to be Dave Stewart too often.
Witt with a battling at bat, but it comes to a close with McGuire retiring him unassisted. 12 out of 13 retired by Mike Moore.
12 ground ball outs. That's what Dave Duncan's got from Mike Moore today. LaRussa is still very intense, but he's not quite as volatile as he was early in his managerial career. Boy, he had a lot of managers from opposing teams upset with him coming out in the field, and he'd yell back at him across the field, including players. He's tempered that considerably.
He tells a story about the guy who's now his bullpen ace, Dennis Eckersley. The A's train in Arizona, as do the Cubs. And just a few months before the A's acquired Eckersley, Gruber fouling one away, a ball and a strike. Eck was pitching against the A's in a spring training game, and somebody stole third with the A's comfortably in front. And Eckersley glared at that runner and began yelling at him. LaRussa came up on the top step of the dugout and yelled right back, "Hey, don't look at him. Come after me if that's what you want. I'm the guy who put the sign on." Now the two can laugh about it, as they've joined forces for one pennant and have a leg up on another one, leading this series 1-0 and game 2 5-1 in the 7th.
You alluded to it yesterday. These two teams have had bad blood. There's the Eck. George Bell charging Gene Nelson, all but pulling his hair out. And LaRussa has the comeback. He said every time somebody comes close to one of their players, meaning Toronto, they say they're throwing at him. Every time we come, it's just the opposite. And he just feels the Toronto team, the right-handers, do not like to be pitched inside. And he says Toronto hits more than anybody in the league. Dave Steve hits quite a few, and that's close to true. But they're not a power pitching staff, and they've got to come inside.
2-2 pitch. Did Gruber go around? Yep. Dan Morrison punches him out of there. Only the third strikeout for Moore. His first since the second inning. During the regular season, he fanned 172 in 242 innings.
And because he has not struck out a lot to this point, you'd have a tendency to say he's not dominating the Blue Jays hitters, but he is with that forkball, and there's a slider. He's dominated with great movement on the ball and getting the ground ball outs.
Mazzilli 0 for 2 today, 0 for 5 in the series. Swings from the heels and doesn't get it. Thinking sweep. They did it last year to the Red Sox, then ran into the Dodger miracle in the World Series.
4 close games, though, with the Red Sox.
Mazzilli, one-time All-Star with the Mets. Hit a big All-Star game home run at the Kingdome in 1979. Went to Texas, the Yankees, the Pirates, then back to the Mets as a big contributor off the pine.
Mazzilli gives a lot of credit for what success he's had in his career to two people. Willie Mays, who was aging and with the Mets then, and the Mets were going so poorly, they brought Mazzilli up and made him a matinee idol and maybe rushed him, made too much of him. And Bobby Valentine, who coached there and got to teach him about base stealing, as did Mays. And Bobby Valentine's going to be doing some work along the way in some of our pre-games in the American League with Marv Albert.
Yeah, we'll see him Friday night at the Kingdome, and that place ought to be jumping, even with the Jays possibly down 0-2. I meant to say Skydome. Let's see if this stays in play. It drops untouched in the bullpen area. As we mentioned last night, and as those of you who follow baseball closely through the year know, this Oakland ballpark probably has more foul territory than any park in the majors.
You mentioned Carney Lansford coming close to leading the league without artificial surface. Big ballpark, a lot of foul territory. Another thing is he doesn't have a short field like the Boggs has in Boston, or Mattingly does in Yankee Stadium in right field. And you don't have a short field. A lot of those fly balls all over the park that track down.
Ricky Henderson comes in. Walt Weiss goes out, and it's Ricky's play. 3 up, 3 down. He's retired 14 of 15. Here's another edition of Rules of the Game. I don't know, folks. Write your own caption.
You wonder if those fans are hoping they come back or they wrap it up in a hurry. You know, some of them have come across the bay and hoping it's a Bay series or a Bart series.
Here's Ricky. As we move to the bottom of the 7th, just a few moments ago, take a look at the scene. Barry Weinberg, the trainer, checking Mike Moore's fingers, looking for evidence of a blister, perhaps. Now we're back live, and there's Moore basking in a 5-1 lead.
Apparently there's no concern. Nobody's warming up in the pen.
Honeycutt was throwing earlier.
He's ready if you need. It wouldn't take him long on a nice warm day like this. You know, and Bobby Cox managed the Blue Jays, and Jimmy Williams, when he took over for Bobby Cox, when Cox went to Atlanta, had a little bit of a theory on pitching Ricky Henderson. They used to throw at least the first time up, sometimes the first pitch in every series, up close and tight to try and straighten him up. Don't let him get the head in the strike zone and get into that deep crouch where he can reach the outside part of the plate for breaking balls, take a walk. Acker did come in and hit him, but that's about the only pitch that's been close.
Here it is on 3-1. He's singled, walked, and singled again today. He's stolen 2 bases. That's today. 4 for the series. And he's been on base 6 times in 8 plate appearances. Any grade school kid could tell you that's one of the keys to their offense. He lays off the letter-high fastball, and he walks to open the 7th. So Wells opens the door and lets trouble in.
What a psychological block he throws to any pitcher, especially young pitchers. Don't put the leadoff hitter on, especially if he's Ricky Henderson. Make him hit his way on. Philosophy. You can't catch a walk.
Lansford with an RBI hit in 3 trips. Takes high and away.
Now maybe, Bob, a different message has been sent down to the Oakland bullpen about Mike Moore's condition, as they do have someone up again. Maybe just precautionary. Casey goes out for the 8th and has a little trouble. Rick Honeycutt up and throwing again.
The 1-0 pitch. First to throw over, and Ricky had a modest lead that time. On Friday at the Sky Dome in Toronto, Storm Davis, 19-7. The A's right-hander, former Oriole, former Padre, against Jimmy Key, the left-hander, 13-14.
Jimmy came back from the strained right shoulder after a really good start and about 10 or 12 off outings. He's been pretty good. Last time out against Baltimore, no, but he's had some overpowering games. 9 strikeouts, no walks against Detroit. Not a good hitting team, but still, it wasn't a small ballpark. And Toronto has played very well in the Sky Dome. They've gained a tremendous amount of confidence up there, but if this score stands up, it'll be too late no matter what they do in the Sky Dome. Then they'd have to come back here, but that's a ways down the road. There's a scouting report, defensive charts. John McLaren on his lap.
Now perfect running count again. That's Mike Squires in the foreground, then Widmar, the pitching coach, and then McLaren closest to Cito.
Of course, Mike Squires, now the first base coach, was the advanced scout with Ron Shooter last season for the Oakland Athletics.
And a first baseman for La Russa with the White Sox before that. There he goes, pitch down and in, no chance. Trot in there, Ricky.
David Wales very upset with himself, and he should be. He just can't, and he's frustrated more than upset because he just hadn't been able to get the curveball over his last few outings after having about 2.5 excellent months overall.
Here's his 3rd steal of the game, his 5th without being caught in the series.
And look at how Ricky finds the ball. You'll see during the course of this series, so many Toronto runners, the younger one, will head for the bag, slide. It could be a wild pitch pass ball. They're sliding into second base. Ricky Henderson knows where it is. He doesn't waste a slide. The ball got by. He'd have been on 3rd base. not only a great base stealer, which we all know, but considered one of the best base runners. And there's a difference in this league.
There he goes for third. It's ball 4. Here's the throw, and he's in there.
Wow, he hit that bag hard on the dive. Was that the left shoulder? Some say that's how he has hurt the shoulder, with that dive through the bag, not just to it, but through the bag. Those bags are anchored. We saw one jarred loose earlier in this ball game, and the peg come out of the dirt. Liriano has the entire right side open covering. Gruber leaves early if it's a strike. He's got the left side open down the line, and jammed shoulder, but he's staying in the game. Look at the rhythm and the timing. It's a very unorthodox way, because they talk about the crossover step, and his first step sometimes is a false step. He's got the right foot in the air, and then it comes down, and yet he still makes it easily most times.
What a dominating presence he's been.
How'd you like to be his agent if he decides to stay here in Oakland? Some said maybe Mr. Steinbrenner will pay a lot of money to get him back. Is it the bag or Kelly Gruber's knee?
He hits the left knee of Gruber.
Yeah, I think that was minimal, though. I think more is that he hit the ground and Kelly Gruber was backing off by the time the knee hit. And remember yesterday, Kelly hit him in the face with the foot as he came through sliding so hard. He just takes the feet right out from the guy making the tag. There's some organizations say they ought to outlaw the head-first slide. Robin Yount may have damaged his shoulder head first. Some other players. And Molliger. Infield in again. Or are they? Now they may be moving little infielders back. They're not sure. It's a bad sign when you're trying to get a sign from your manager and they say, well, we don't know what to do. And you know they can't afford to give up any more runs, so they got to come home. And I don't know why there's any hesitation. You open up the whole infield playing in, and you could set up a big inning, but you got to take a chance and try and shut down every run you can now.
Parker popped out, grounded out, and then hit his first ever postseason home run deep into the seats in right center.
Do you think Ricky Henderson loves having Carney Lansford batting where he is? I mean, 1 ball, 2 strikes earlier in this game. He ran, didn't bother Lansford. 3-2. He runs, steals third, didn't bother Lansford. He takes the walk.
Do you think Ricky Henderson loves the postseason spotlight?
Oh.
The 1-0 pitch coming to Parker. Tony, did you ever think you'd see today when a big league ball player, and a very respected one at that, certainly one that very few would question, would stride to the plate sporting an earring?
You might also notice that the postseason play diamond is larger than the one he uses during the regular season. There
They
he
got him
goes.
picked off. The throw to second hits Lansford in the back.
E3.
Here comes Henderson.
Tony Fernandez gave the target to Freddie McGriff inside the bag when they had him picked off. Lansford may have veered just a little bit into the path of the ball to get hit in the back. And with a methodical delivery that David Wells has, that's what you want to do. So it'll be an E3. Used to say getting a rundown. Well, big league players don't mess up rundowns. And Tony Fernandez is inside the infield side, and the ball just strips in from Freddie McGriff. There's a play that you see Henderson scoring. I believe Maury Wills may have pioneered.
Parker fouls it off, 1-2. He did it against your Yankees in the 1963 series, I recall. Who was the pitcher, Ford or Downing, who picked him off and he just kept on
Whitey
going?
Ford. And Bobby Richardson was going to take the throw, and I was standing there, and he deflected it, and Maury just came right on. But Maury's the one who's a master at it. Just keep on going, because you're not going to get out of it any other way. Yeah, when you think about it, many times they put a guy first base because he has a poor throwing arm. Sometimes it's lack of speed. Many times it's poor throwing arm. He couldn't play the outfield. The arm was too weak. Freddie's arm was pretty strong, but he just threw it errantly.
Here's Fernandez drifting under Parker's pop-up. And it's the first out here in the last half of the 7th. On that last play, you charge an error to McGriff for allowing Henderson to come home from third. But Lansford technically gets a stolen base. And in just 2 games, we're closing in on the all-time playoff record for most steals by both teams combined, which is 15 by the Mets and the Dodgers in a series that went 7 last fall.
Cito Gaston coming out. He's going to give, with an off day tomorrow, his closer, Tom Hankey, a little bit of work. We'll be back. The Athletics about to go away with a sweep at home.
The sellout crowd enjoying it at the Coliseum. 6-1, bottom half of the 7th. The run already home. Henke comes on just to give him some work, as Tony said, and McGuire rolls one slowly to short. They'll get him out for the first time today. He had singled twice and doubled before that at bat.
Tom Hankey with that forkball that he throws more often now than even the fastball. Asked for some work. An 8-1 ball game in Detroit for an off day, and then Baltimore came into the Sky Dome and having a little difficulty with the forkball, and he wanted to make some adjustments. Go into the glove from the stretch with the forkball grip. Change it to the slider, which he throws on occasion, or the fastball, so that the hitter cannot pick it up.
Dave Henderson now 1 for 3, a ground rule double his last time up. Since Cito Gaston took over, Henke's ERA is a microscopic 0.92 with 8 earned runs in 79 innings.
Oh, the strikeouts to innings pitches have been incredible.
Here it is, 73 Ks in 49 innings pitched.
Then you got to start talking about Rob Dibble from Cincinnati with his awesome numbers.
But right now the scoreboard is taunting Gaston and the Blue Jays. He's got his closer in there, but he's trailing 6-1.
He's got to give him a little postseason play. Henke's had it before, but with an off day tomorrow, take the edge off a little bit.
The Sky Dome figured to be electric. First postseason game there.
Oh,
they
it will
moved
be.
in June 5th.
It will be.
It may be even more so if they come back down 0-2, because they'll be in a frame of mind to try and give their team a jolt.
Well, we heard it when Baltimore was there, that extra inning game on Friday, then again Saturday on the clincher.
Roof open or close, we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see whether or not the league office, Dr. Brown, will determine that in the marginal situations.
In the playoffs, it's out of the hands of team ownership and into the hands of the league president. If they made the World Series, there's Bobby Brown. If they made the World Series, Commissioner Fay Vincent would decide open or closed.
You know where or what the Blue Jays would like to do. They're 10-0 with the dome closed, and
bingo,
2-0 when it's closed in progress. So
2-1 pitch.
Hey, falls in the Toronto area on the shores of Lake Ontario could be beautiful. They could be just like this. A little cool, crisp, very sunny.
If the weather is like what we anticipate tonight at Wrigley, it would definitely be closed. We've got an updated weather forecast for tonight's game 1 between the Giants and the Cubs from Chicago. We'll give it to you as soon as we have a chance here, which will come after this commercial. Dave Henderson fans to end the inning. The A's push another one across. Some genteel fans enjoying themselves. 6 outs away from a 2-0 lead in the series. Tony La Russa says Mike Moore has had enough. In comes 35-year-old Rick Honeycutt. Honeycutt has been the bait in a couple of deals involving other quality pitchers. He went from Texas to the Dodgers in 1983 for his present teammate Dave Stewart. Then a couple of years ago from the Dodgers to Oakland in the deal in which LA acquired Tim Belcher.
And when Ricky Henderson came over and a couple of pitchers went to the Yankees, they thought, well, they had to get Ricky Henderson, obviously, because Canseco's status was somewhat in flux. They didn't know when he would come back, let alone how much he'd contribute. But they also thought that it might destroy the bullpen with Cataray and Plunk going to the Yankees. But Tony La Russa said he also knew they had people like Honeycutt. Todd Burns had come along from the right side. Matt Young, the left-hander's elbow was finally getting well. And Gene Nelson is a horse down there also. So they knew they still had a lot left to get after they gave up Henderson. You know, how'd you like to come in against the Honeycutt? The bullpen is so balanced. Or come in after Moore. There's Gene Nelson way to the right. Kurt Young, the ball in his glove, and Eck. You get a hard thrower, power pitcher, hard slider, fastball. Then you come in with a sinker ball with a good curveball from the opposite side. That'll tear you up as a hitter.
1-1 to Liriano. And that's up high. Mosby and Wilson will follow. Consider that graphic up a moment ago about Ricky Henderson. The 4 steals in this game is not just a record for a playoff game. Playoffs, after all, have only been in place since 1969. Hit sharply through the hole, a base hit for Liriano. He's 1 for 2 with a walk today. But the 4 steals are a record for any postseason game, including the World Series dating back to 1903. So you think about it. Lou Brock had a World Series in which he stole 13. Pepper Martin ran wild in 1 World Series. There have been other great speedsters to perform in World Series play, but nobody has ever stolen 4 bases in a playoff or World Series game, and you can see how excited Ricky is about it. Mosby 1 for 3, has a single, robbed of a hit on the best play of the day. A diving stop by Phillips to his left on the outfield grass, and then he popped back up quickly and threw Lloyd out at first by half a step.
And Mark McGuire at first with a 5-run lead. The luxury of just decoying, then backing off with the left-hand hitter up. The sinker ball will get you the ground ball. That's what Honeycutt usually does.
Now, about tonight's weather at Wrigley Field. We have checked with John Coleman, the weatherman at our NBC station WMAQ in Chicago. And he tells us that conditions tonight will be quite different than what we indicated earlier today. Now, either there has been a tremendous shift in the weather conditions, or one of our key personnel in Chicago gave us bogus information, and he's sending his resumes out even as we speak. The low this morning was 32 degrees, and they had their first frost of the season, which led to speculation from our sources in Chicago that temperatures would be in the 30s at game time tonight. Not so, says Mr. Coleman. This gets away from Hasse, and Liriano goes to second with nobody out. Big turn.
It looked like a pass ball. And Lloyd Mosby's going to ask for a look at the baseball, because Honeycutt, you might recall, in Seattle, the late Bill Kunkel caught him with a thumbtack, taped his finger. And the suspension fine. This scoots right through Hasse's wickets. But what is the wind in Wrigley?
The winds apparently are very light right now, and they expect, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. These are the winds here in Oakland. We're talking about Chicago. Pitch to Mosby is in there. Mr. Coleman, the ace meteorologist in Chicago, tells us temperatures will be in the mid-50s, perhaps dropping into the high 40s tonight, so not nearly as bad as we first feared. Garelts against Maddox.
Some debris on the field. Ricky's going to, I guess, the ball loose from the bullpen. And some people who say that if the wind is blowing in, which is usually what it does out of the northeast, Wrigley Field, it favors the Cubs. If it's blowing out, Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell and company expected to be favored.
Mosby pops one to the left side. Lansford has no chance. You got to look at the flag in center field. The flags are at half staff in this ballpark, as they were in every other park toward the end of this regular season, in memory of the late commissioner Bart Giamatti. And you'll notice that the umpires are wearing either shirts on a warm day like this or jackets with the initials ABG, A. Bartlett Giamatti, as they will through the playoffs and World Series. Mosby has a walk.
Comes Dave Duncan.
You know, Bart Giamatti was a man of great facility with words, and there were many glowing tributes to him after his death, but I thought the one that was most telling, that he would have appreciated most, was a one-sentence statement, very simple, very direct, by Whitey Herzog. He said, "I knew him. He never played the game, but he was a baseball man. And in this world, that's the highest compliment you can pay another man."
I guess Commissioner Giamatti did finish a book to be published, and apparently going to have an awful lot to do with the game of baseball. He's done it before, though, in poetry and prose. The man to replace him, Mr. Fay Vincent, got a big task filling those shoes, and also some problems building up. Potential problems.
Mookie Wilson from the right side has an infield hit in 3 trips. 2 for 6 in the series. Jays with 2 on, nobody out, but trailing 6-1 in the top of the 8th. McGriff is on deck, and then Bell. Eckersley's up. So's Todd Burns. Hasse manages to handle it. Hasse ought to come out of this game with a Purple Heart. He's been on his knees both to block pitches and to recover when foul tips have bounded off almost every portion of his body today.
Anticipation of that breaking ball is so important to get out there, but you can see that with the late condition of Hasse, he really couldn't shift down. He had to just reach for the ball, but he did slap her down.
2-1 with Mookie looking like he was taking all the way.
Toronto did have the first 2 on in the second. Came up empty. Couple on with just 1 out. And the third got just 1.
Well, Honeycutt here is a pitch away from loading him up with nobody out. They'd still need 1 more base runner before they could bring the tying run to the plate.
I'm assuming Mookie Wilson's going to be taken all the way to force him to throw 2 strikes.
He couldn't even throw 1. The bases are loaded. A single, and then back-to-back walks with a 5-run lead. We might see him yet.
Tony La Russa has been very careful to ration the innings of Eckersley. You can see it last year, again this year. He likes to save him just for that last inning, if he can. That's why when he got these men on, he was thinking maybe giving Todd Burns, but if something strikes in a hurry with these big bats in the middle coming, he's going to go to Eckersley.
He may give Honeycutt just 1 more hitter here because it's the lefty McGriff. This would be a very opportune moment for McGriff to break out of the shackles of a month-long slump. He's 0 for 7 in the series. He's without a homer in nearly 100 at-bats. He's ahead on the count, 2-0.
It looks like he's going to get his fastball now, 2-0. Perhaps a fastball down, but maybe not from Honeycutt.
I think La Russa's coming to take the ball.
Eckersley's last 4 pitches down there appear to be as hard as he can throw them. He's going to go to him. A right-hander against left-handed Freddie McGriff. That's how good Eck is.
Eckersley coming in. We're stepping aside for a minute. This is a potential save situation for Eckersley because the rule reads you have to enter the game with the potential tying run either on base, at bat, or on deck. So this is the most extreme possible situation. They're up by 5, but the potential tying run in theory is on deck with the bases loaded here. Eckersley inherits a 2-0 count on McGriff, who lines one solidly to right. Canseco coming over. It drops in front of him for a hit. They'll play it 1 station at a time. The bases remain loaded, and Bell comes to the plate as the tying run in a 6-2 game. McGriff's first hit of the series.
The ball was hit so hard off Freddie McGriff's bat off the 2-0 count. Canseco never had a chance to get on it. It looked like he had a good jump. The ball sunk. It was hooking away. And Mookie off second base couldn't score in the event that Canseco made a shoestring catch. So he played it very cautiously, as he should have.
The 8 Toronto Grand Slams this year were by 8 different players. Bell was not one of them. Ground ball might be 2. There's 1. Weiss on to McGuire. Double double play. They get a run, but at a very high cost. Mosby comes across, and it's 6-3.
Eckersley looked like he ran something hard in on the hands of George Bell, a pattern we've seen developing to this point by the Oakland pitching staff to Bell, boring the fastball in on him. Sounded like the bat broke.
Fernandez with the Blue Jays in desperate need of a hit. Two and 0 to him. From the Blue Jay perspective, even had it only been a force play, then you've got runners at first and third with only one out. You can get a fourth run on an out, and even if you get no more in the inning, you potentially enter the ninth where a blue pit or a walk or something, and you bring the tying run to the plate.
That was not an easy double play because Phillips had
Here's
to unload
Phillips
in a hurry.
again. Busy day, and he's been flawless.
He had to unload in a hurry, and Weiss had to come from deep short playing Bell as a pull-hitter. We'll be back, folks. Blue Jays had a chance. He shut him down. Look where Walt Weiss is. Phillips, not an easy play. How he got that much on the ball with a little backhanded flip, and Weiss glides into it, does not get upset as Liriano did yesterday. Bell's not a bad runner, but when you get hit on the fist as he did break the bat on that, but when you get jammed as he did, many times you get a poor jump out of the batter's box. There have been not too many times that George Bell has failed when Toronto's needed him over the last few months.
New pitcher, left-hander John Cerruti. You know, when we mentioned early Oakland's record of 48-18 in day games, sometimes stats like that are misleading. They're flukes. But it was worth mentioning here because the vast majority of those day games were played in this park. Hasse reaches for one, rolls it down to McGriff. They play more afternoon games than most clubs. The Cubs and the Red Sox would be exceptions. They play more than anybody. But the A's play a lot of midweek afternoon games, especially on getaway day when they're embarking on a road trip. And so their record in afternoon games was relevant here, and they appear on their way to their 49th win against 18 defeats in sunshine.
The huge spotlight has been on Rickey Henderson, but there's a lot of glow for this guy. Defensively, yesterday getting on base like he did.
The pitch to Tony Phillips is ball one.
Henderson's got that ice bag on the left shoulder, so by sliding hard, whether it was the knee of Kelly Gruber or just jamming it into the bag, or was he putting this on? He looked like he had a smile on his face. Looked like he knew the camera was on him. Now he's hurting.
Parker, Dave Henderson, Rickey Henderson. Tony Phillips has established an American League playoff record for assists in one game by a second baseman with 8. Wally Backman had 9 assists in a National League Championship Series game at second base for the Mets, but it was a 12-inning game in 1986 against the Astros. This sets the American League record and ties the Major League record for assists in a 9-inning game at 8. Manny Trio at second base for the Phillies in that wild series against the Astros in 1980 also had an 8-assist game.
And he got a chance to play more because Weiss went down. Gallego plays those 60 games at shortstop. Phillips with over 500 at-bats during the regular season, and he was supposed to be their jack-of-all-trades, kind of a roamer. He's become, at least for the first 2 games, a little mini-hero at this point.
2 out, nobody on, and another chance for Canseco, who came on as a pinch hitter in the 6th and struck out. Batting for Javier. If you're just joining us, and I imagine many people, with it being just past 6:15 on the East Coast, are getting home from work and missed the beginning of the game. Canseco was originally in the starting lineup, reported with a migraine headache, and they changed to Javier just before the first pitch.
This is only the third time all year John Cerruti's pitched out of the bullpen. Got some work on Sunday, the meaningless game in the Sky Dome, and one time earlier in the season. Came up with a good sinker ball, curve ball. Had a terrific stretch for about 3 months. When Key struggled, Flanagan missed a few turns, as did Steve. Especially when they sent Todd Stottlemyer back down, he picked up a lot of slack.
3-0 to Jose, who looks down at Rene Latchman. They're up by 3. 2 outs, nobody on. He's looking to get on track. Let him rip if he wants. But that one wasn't close enough. So on 4 pitches, he draws a 2-out walk. Trailing by 3, these are the Toronto hitters scheduled in the 9th. Ernie Witt, Kelly Gruber, and the DH Lee Mazzilli.
You think John Cerruti was going to let Canseco swing at a 3-0 pitch with Walt Weiss next and 2 outs? No chance. Dave McKay again. Not the racing team this year. His 40 stolen base year last year with some sore legs. But the way he's chased some balls down in the outfield. Last night, that ball in the right field corner, a long run, sprinted after it. You wonder as the season progresses, against right-handed pitchers especially, if he won't be a stolen base threat also in this series.
The 2 teams combined have already tied the League Championship Series record with 15 total steals, set by the Mets and Dodgers last year in a 7-game set. They've got him picked off. McGriff's throw, and they finally get somebody.
McGriff had a lot more on that throw. He didn't lob it, he rifled it.
That's the first man caught stealing for either side. The A's have 10 steals, 6 of them belonging to Henderson, and Toronto 5 in the series. On to the 9th. There are few sure things in life, but Dennis Eckersley, with a 3-run lead at home in the 9th, comes close. We mentioned last night that the A's are only the 2nd team to repeat a division championship since the strike season of 1981, joining the Royals of 84 and 85. But the difficulty in repeating goes beyond that. Since 1981, only 2 division winners out of 32 possibilities have repeated, and 17 of the 32 have finished 4th or lower, and about half of them have failed to play 500 ball the year after a division title. Tony La Russa made a study of the difficulty of repeating. He called old buddies. He called Paul Richards. He called Dick Williams. He even called Bill Walsh here in the Bay Area, talking to him about how he motivated the 49ers the year after a Super Bowl. Went about it in a very methodical way.
You've got to have a special blend of personalities, I think, that wants to, not only as individual, but mainly as a team, go through the excessive pressure of postseason play. 162 games, a chance to lose it all in 4 to 7. How many teams have they forgotten about? Philadelphia Phillies. Danny Ozark got fired. Whitey Herzog was part of that Kansas City Royals team when they didn't have Quisenberry. They lost to the Yankees, and it's if the whole season's gone. And the amount of pressure in League Championship Series play, along with other elements, injuries and free agency and all else. But I think the pressure's got a lot to do with it. Maintain that emotional level coming back the second time is tough. I mean, we've seen it how many times now where it looks like when teams get in the World Series, like it's almost a laugher. Freddie McGriff, who admittedly is swinging the bat better the last week, but he just can't get the pitches to hit for home runs.
The 1-1 pitch is in there. Eckersley walked only 3 men all year. 3. That's why it was so remarkable last year when he walked Mike Davis with 2 out and nobody on a 3-2 pitch ahead of Kirk Gibson. And then Gibson hit the miracle home run.
It's not just that he throws strikes. I mean, he does not use at least the middle 12 inches of the plate. Spots it right where he wants to. A few more off-speed pitches yesterday. Mosby on twice in this ballgame, robbed once by Tony Phillips.
Foul back. Eckersley was a 20-game winner for the Red Sox in their star-crossed season of 1978. He went 20-8. He won 17 the next year. And La Russa had an interesting observation. He said successful starting pitchers, especially those with a history of many complete games, and Eckersley often went the distance for the Indians and the Red Sox, are used to pitching in the ninth, protecting a one-run lead. And in this case, when you come out of the bullpen, you've got your best stuff. Witt hits it hard but foul, and you can let it go full throttle. So psychologically, he felt that Eckersley would be ideally suited to the closer's role when he eventually designed that role for him, even though he had had only 3 saves in his entire life before he was sent to the bullpen here in '87.
And yet he will still tell you he doesn't like it. He said, I'm too nervous to be a closer.
Two pitch, whacked down the right field line and foul. Witt today is 0 for 3, but he has hit several balls hard and barely foul.
Which may not mean anything because it may be a pitching pattern. Throwing anywhere breaking balls or fastballs off the plate inside. If he tries to steer it fair, he jams himself. Tom Hinkey got a little bit of work today. That's Al Leiter to Hinkey's right. Came over in the Jesse Barfield trade, had shoulder surgery, ineligible. He's just here to have a look in postseason play.
Left field this time. Henderson looking through the glare and tucking it away.
You know, along with what we were saying Ernie Witt putting the ball foul and hard, there is something to pitching inside, and the pitch inside effectively. Many people, Duncan one, pitch inside off the plate. Pull hitters will pull it foul. Postseason history.
Well, the Blue Jays know all about it. They led 2-0 and 3-1 against Kansas City before letting it get away. And in the World Series that followed, the Cardinals led 2-0 and 3-1 against the same underdog team of Dick Howser, and the Royals battled back. But the way the A's have dominated the Blue Jays so far.
Well, Toronto got just 5 base hits yesterday. They have just 5 to this point today, a few walks and some opportunities.
They had leads in both games, 2-0 and 3-1 last night, 1-0 here. The way it's been going, maybe their best hope is that they won't let the A's through customs. We'll be in Toronto for Game 3 Friday.
He drops down with that sweeping curve. Very effective pitch. There it is again, a little harder. Right-handers with that delivery where he's looking out of his left eye, it looks like, and stepping toward the third base dugout, and start bailing out, and he can just paint that outside corner with it. A lot of guys swing at bad pitches way outside.
Gruber hits it very well. Henderson turns, looking up, making the catch on the run in front of the 375 sign. And La Russa lets a little Mona Lisa smile play at the corners of his mouth on this, his 45th birthday, and they're just about set to blow the candles out on the Blue Jays for the 2nd time in a row.
When Dave Henderson's legs are healthy as they are now, he's not the best center fielder, but he's very steady. He's running well like he is now, and throwing as he's shown, he's much, much better than average.
Eckersley, who celebrated his 35th birthday yesterday, trying to close it out and evening the count at 1-1 to Mazzilli. They're on their feet at the Coliseum. Moore would get the victory. Eckersley the save. Todd Stottlemyer the loss. And it would be up to Jimmy Key in Game 3 against Storm Davis. The 1-2 pitch. Little pop. Weiss wants it. The A's win 2 at home. They've excelled in so many ways. Good starting pitching from Stewart, who struggled a little bit before finding a groove last night, and more today. Eckersley out of the bullpen. They played well defensively. Phillips with a wonderful game today. They've had key hits. They've hit 3 home runs in the series. And
Ricky.
Henderson has dominated.
Game 2 of the American League Championship Series is brought to you by Mazda Cars and Trucks. Mazda, it just feels right. By Spro's, Fire Brewed, Family Brewed for more than 200 years. By the good time, great taste of McDonald's. And by State Farm Insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.